Aprils now? No. Oh, well, she had no idea. Oh, that breaks my heart. Good stuff. Hey, look, just before we go, again, I want to squeeze... I'm enjoying these today in history. I don't know if you guys are, but I'd like them. Just to kind of, make us think about history. So I do want to do this one because there's some good stuff in here. So it is Monday, the 22nd of April. It's 113 days into the year. Whoa, we're slowly getting through it. Still 253 days left. Today marks Jelly Beans Day. The origin of jelly beans is quite obscure. According to one common story, they actually existed as early as 1861 when Boston confectioner William Shaft urged people to buy them as gifts for the soldiers in the American Civil War. A more definite reference appears in food testing records of the United States Department of Agriculture. That was 1887. Most historians contend that the jelly beans were first associated with celebrations of Easter sometime during the 30s because they kind of look like eggs. Kind of, do they? The original flavours, very cherry, tangerine, lemon, green apple, grape, root beer, cream soda and licorice. And nobody liked the black ones. Racist. 1692 on the 22nd of April, Edward and Sarah Bishop and 7 others were examined by magistrates in Salem, Massachusetts for witchcraft. A victim of neighbourhood gossip for years, largely due to the fact they like late-night parties, the pair were jailed but escaped 6 months later, thus avoiding execution. During the infamous Salem witch trials of 1692, more than 200 people were accused of practising witchcraft. 20 of them were executed, most by hanging. But get this one. One man, accused of being a witch, was pressed to death under heavy stones. The only such state-sanctioned execution of its kind. On the morning of April 22, 1884, Thomas Stevens boarded the ferry along with his penny farthing bicycle and went between San Fran and Oakland. A few months shy of 3 years later, he pulled into the same bay on an ocean steamer. What had he done in those 3 years? He rode his bike around the world. A penny farthing. Stevens quickly mastered his riding skills. He purchased his Columbia penny farthing with little more than a raincoat pistol in his wits. Stevens carried with him only what he could fit on his handlebars and beneath his seat. And we had those crazy bikes in New Zealand. They were also called Ordinary. They appeared in New Zealand roads in 1870. Very quickly, on this day 94, Michael Moorer claimed the heavyweight boxing title by smashing Evander Holyfield in Nevada. Holyfield was hospitalised after the fight for dehydration and a rotator cuff injury, but while in hospital, it was soon found he had a heart problem. His lungs filled due to his heart not being able to pump fluids out. As a result, he announced his retirement only 5 days after the fight. It would be very brief because he returned the following year to defeat Ray Mercer. Moorer is one of David Tua's most celebrated victims. The Kiwi knocked him out in just 30 seconds into the first round of their 2002 fight in New Jersey. Moorer stepped away from the ring in 2008 with a record 52 wins, 4 losses and a draw. And finally, 2016, on the 22nd of April, the Paris Agreement was open for signatures. Yep, we signed up. And we don't really need to know more about that, do we? I'll leave you with this quote. Our own political life is predicated on openness. We do not believe any group of men adequate enough or wise enough to operate without scrutiny or without criticism. And that's from Robert Oppenheimer. On that note, thank you for today. Thanks for your calls, your texts. Have a great Monday evening. Make sure you tune in at 7 and catch Sean Plunket, and of course stay with us all day. And I'll see you back at 4 tomorrow. Have a good one.
You're listening to the best of the platform talk and music on the platform.
It's Tuesday. Welcome to the platform. I'm Sean Plunket. This is the Information Project. Well, this morning, law and order. As the government reintroduces 3 strikes, we mark the 6-month anniversary of the brutal murder by blunt force trauma of baby Roo. Why can't we catch that killer? And I don't know how much money we're spending at the Waitangi Tribunal or at the High Court over the Waitangi Tribunal. I'll give you a report from the courtroom a little later in the program. Also, how best do we remember them and mark Anzac Day with respect? Right now, though, it's news time.
News on the platform.
In this update, uncertainty over the impending reintroduction of 3 strikes legislation. The government's getting ready to bring back the law which would see mandatory prison sentences for violent and sexual criminals committing a 3rd offence. It will be slightly different to what was scrapped in 2022, only applying to sentences above 24 months. Women's Refuge Chief Executive Ange Dury says last time there was no indication it worked.
I do wonder whether there's going to be a reluctance on some victims who actually want help for their partner to call police. I just don't know at this point.
Oranga Tamariki has called in the consultants to help the agency cut jobs in its bid to save costs. The Children's Ministry, which needs to find 6.5% cost savings, has been looking at cutting 447 net roles as it tries to go back to its core purpose. It's confirmed it's working with 2 consultancy agencies on its change proposal, with advice not available internally. Around 2,500 resident doctors are set to go on strike for 25 hours on May 7. The Resident Doctors Association says bargaining with Health New Zealand has reached an impasse. National Secretary Deborah Powell says while the majority of members would receive a substantial pay rise, a minority would receive a pay cut.
300 registrar positions will get up to a 12% pay cut, and it also represents a pay cut for general practice trainees.
Health New Zealand says they guaranteed in initial negotiations no resident medical officer will receive a pay cut, and they're focused on ongoing good faith bargaining. Donald Trump says he's in court for a very minor thing in terms of the law. Trump's charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records, which prosecutors allege was an effort to divert campaign donations to pay porn star Stormy Daniels hush money. Donald Trump says all he did was pay a legal expense.
You pay a lawyer who's a lawyer, and they call it a legal expense. That's the exact term they used, legal expense, in the books.
That's news.
Sport on the platform.
In sport, Crusaders boss Colin Mansbridge has taken aim at some pundits, suggesting the perennial Super Rugby winners part ways with Rob Penny. The Crusaders are last on the competition ladder with 1 win from 8. Mansbridge says while he can understand emotive fans looking for a scapegoat, he can't accept that position being taken by experts. Mystics captain Michaela Sokolic-Beatson has pointed to team chemistry as the key behind her side's hard-fought 61-52 win over the Steel in their ANZ Premiership netball contest in Invercargill. The defending champions had to weather a 3rd quarter fight back from the Steel, who closed the gap from 10 goals to 3 midway through the period. Sokolic-Beatson told Sky Sport her side's experience as a squad helped them manage the adversity. World number 1, Scotty Scheffler, has claimed a 3-shot win at the RBC Heritage in South Carolina, his 4th victory in 5 tournaments. That's sport. I'm Jodie Gill.
It's time for climate change on the platform. The weather, brought to you by kiwifertiliser.co.nz. Custom-made biological fertiliser that feeds
Brought to you by Easy Build. Quality modular homes built fast, designed to last. Visit us at easybuild.co.nz.
That's the Easy Build way.
Takaka, Ben. Well, you've hit a nerve there. I've got some stories about Takaka. Louise from Takaka.
Louise.
Just say Takaka's got some memories for me, and my good friends from school days will. No, I've got some great stories about Takaka. All right, nice choice, Ben. Well done. Takaka is the Easy Build hotspot with the location. All right, let's get into it. And this morning, really, I want to talk justice and law and order in a very broad sense, because it would seem to me a whole lot of things have come together at the same time to make that the issue of today. And one I'm sure you all have opinions on that you want to share with me. It is 6 months since a 2-year-old child who was, well, colloquially called Baby Ruthless Empire, though our officials had the good sense not to accept that as the child's official name, and he has now been renamed in what I can only presume is some bout of political correctness. Apparently he's now known as Nā reo te huatahi rere moana a pani wall. Well, he's known as the dead kid. Died of blunt force trauma 6 months ago. Presented at hospital in Wellington or the Hutt Valley. Injury sustained sometime within the previous 12 hours. Dead. Only 3 people at the address he was at. And they are his mother, Storm Wall, great name, another woman called Rosie Mauranga, and a guy called Dylan Ross, who was Rosie Mauranga's partner. One of those people is currently before the courts on violence charges. And they all, and one can only presume it was them, all conspired to remove evidence and alter the scene where Baby Roo died. So they conspired to conceal evidence and to pervert the course of justice in a police inquiry. They are still all at large. And if you know them, you might be seeing them on a day-to-day basis in the Hutt Valley somewhere. Storm Wall, Rosie Mauranga, and Dylan Ross, who killed Baby Ruthless Empire before his 2nd birthday. Police have scaled back the investigation. Well, there doesn't seem to be much happening, does there? But they're confident they'll get justice for Baby Roo. Well, I wonder if the period of his short life would have to pass before they do, and why our justice system and our police cannot move against, and surely being a baby killer is the worst crime. I can't think of anything worse than killing a kid, than killing a baby, a defenseless baby, than being a baby murderer. Oh, God, I can hear the Palestine people going off about this now, can't I? But no, let's keep it in the New Zealand context. So we seem, and can I just say to the Post newspaper, they have devoted their entire front page today to this story, and can I say to Francis Chin and to the editorial staff at the Post, bloody good on you, because I'd planned to come and have a rave about this today, and I pick up the paper on the way to work, and there it is, your headline, 6 months, no arrest, pursuit of justice for Baby Roo grinds on. Well, this is funny, because yesterday I was at a press conference where Nicola McKee and the Prime Minister were talking about the reintroduction of a 3 strikes law, and we're going to talk to criminal lawyer Marie Dyberg about that a little later, designed to make us safe and say we're getting tough on crime. Well, funnily enough, Baby Roo was killed just after you came to power, Chris Luxon. And I don't care what's in your 100-day plan, to be brutally frank. Your 100-day plan should have been included not scaling back the investigation into Baby Roo's murder, but catching the child killer. Because you can take your 3 strikes improved law, which will become, I think by the end of the year that will be in place and might affect 90 of the most violent, nasty repeat offenders in the country. Or you can stop people killing kids. I'm always going to go for the latter. Let's stop people killing kids and catch people who kill kids. And let's not sweep this tragic and all too common aspect of New Zealand life under the carpet. All right. So I want your thoughts on this. Do you know anything about this case that could help? And are you satisfied? Here's the real question. Are you satisfied with our police force and with our government that Baby Rue's killer or killers still walk free? Because 6 months on, the most heinous of crimes and nada, nothing, zilch in terms of prosecution, in terms of arrest. Just absolutely appalling. Appalling. I've got a little more to say about justice and the justice system, but I want you to ponder on that. We will go to a break.
When it comes to fertilising your property for maximum production and environmental protection, one size simply doesn't fit all. KiwiFertiliser.co.nz is a bespoke system that specifically analyses your soil to create a custom blend for your property. This targeted, sophisticated approach maximises production and profit while ensuring the health and sustainability of your farm. Contact them today at KiwiFertiliser.co.nz.
Sometimes the grass is greener, but with Lawnmaster the grass is just better. And with Lawnmaster's lithium battery range it's even easier too. Share one battery between your lawnmower, hedge trimmer, chainsaw, blower and line trimmer. Quiet, easy to use, lightweight and zero emissions. One battery to master your garden with Lawnmaster, your 100% New Zealand owned outdoor power specialist. Go to lawnmaster.co.nz to find your local Lawnmaster dealer. Another Steelfort brand.
Longridge Country Estate Retirement Village in the central vibrant town of Paeroa offers quality 2 and 3 bedroom villas and a relaxed country town lifestyle that needs to be seen to be appreciated. Come and see it for yourself. We're open daily from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Inquire about our special offers available now. Call Longridge today to find out more on 0800 928 928. That's 0800 928 928.
That's the Easy Build way.
Easy Build's quality, cost-effective modular homes are the smart choice for your new home or investment property. For a limited time, lock in your new home build with Easy Build and receive up to $10,000 to spend at Freedom, so you can enjoy the freedom to style your home on us. T's and C's apply. Get started today at easybuild.co.nz and book in your free new home build consultation to start turning your new home dreams into reality.
That's the Easy Build way.
Plunket Unchained on the platform.
Got a few texts and I'll share with you, and you feel welcome to ring in on 0800 33 2283 0800 debate. Sean, they should arrest them all on perverting the course of justice for little baby Rue. Why haven't they? I don't know. Can they just not be asked? Sean, all 3 of those people should be in jail for life. We have such a weak justice system. So many more stories I've read lately about weak sentencing. Don't forget to Baby Rue's mother, Storm Wall. She says her baby was murdered. Well, could you elucidate, please, Storm Wall? God, I hope you haven't got other kids. I really do. Sean, I don't get our police. We seem to spend so much time and effort to find someone who painted over a rainbow crossing, yet 6 months and still haven't done anything about Baby Rue. Pathetic how we have a low bar when it comes to killing babies. Cheers, Rich. Sean, charge all 3 in Baby Rue's killing, surely culpable and hardly a murder mystery. Makes me wonder if this has anything to do with the ethnic leniency in our judiciary, says Tony. Sean, 3 strikes and stopping baby killers. Why not both? I agree, Tom. Actually, yeah. Let's be aspirational. So, look, if you know anything, could you ring in and tell me, what do you think of this? I think it's an utter failure of us as a nation. 6 months on, not an arrest. And look, I don't know, are you playing some smart game, Inspector Nick Pritchard? I'd hate to have your bloody job, but I'm sorry, I sit there and look at, there are lots of things you could arrest these people for and put them in chokey and break them. Get them to tell the bloody truth. Thought, Sean, 3 strikes is Baby Roo, not a binary choice. Go for both of them. Thank you very much indeed, Graham. Yes, I agree. I agree. But look, I saw another side of our justice system yesterday. I went down to Parliament for the launch of the new 3 strikes policy and sat at the back of the room like a good little journalist and watched a fairly boring, uninspiring news conference with Nicola McKee, who spoke to Leah yesterday, and the Prime Minister, Chris Luxon, who doesn't come on this program because he's a bit of a wuss. But I went across after that. I went and spent an hour in the High Court, number 1 courtroom at the High Court, which is the courtroom that was hearing the judicial review application, or this argument between the Waitangi Tribunal and Oranga Tamariki, or Child Services, I think it was, and the Crown, over the controversial subpoenaing of Karen Chua before the Waitangi Tribunal, which is holding an inquiry into the decision to repeal parts of legislation, pieces of legislation, Section 77A or something, which basically give your Māoriness, if you're a kid, some precedent in what happens to you if you are uplifted by a rangatamariki. It's basically an ethnic recognition or differentiation in the way that our child welfare policies are announced, which is going under Labour. Gosh, I sat there for an hour, and if all the money spent in that hour and all the intensity spent in that hour that I just sat there for and listened to the arguments had been expended on the hunt for Baby Roo's killer, I suspect someone would be behind bars now. But what I saw was a bunch of very, very well-paid lawyers, like a dozen of them or more, and a very, very well-paid judge sitting there having a proxy argument, a proxy political argument. The Waitangi Tribunal, for whatever reason, has deemed itself the chalk monitor on this government. It was never established to review policies made by the Crown, by the Cabinet, by the government of the day. That's not its job. It never has been. But it's taken upon itself to do this, to conduct a political witch hunt. And it decided, I think, that it was going to put Karen Chua in the stocks and pelt her with rotten tomatoes and eggs and rotten food. And she said, get stuffed. Quite rightly has said, get stuffed. Now, as someone observed to me, no minister has refused to appear before the tribunal before. But then again, I guess the tribunal didn't in the past play politics the way it has. So what I saw was an argument taking place in which I must say I am with the Crown and Karen Chua. The Waitangi Tribunal has absolutely no business holding this inquiry. It is an utter waste of public money. And it is an attempt by the tribunal to suggest that it is in somehow over and above or even alongside the government of the day, which is not. It is not. It is a creation of statute. And it is not the boss of the government or you or me. And it should stick to its goddamn knitting, or indeed its basket weaving, I'm sure would say it's into. So that's where I stand on the case. But to the fact that it has now got to a High Court judicial review, the decision, by the way, all the evidence was heard yesterday, and the decision is reserved, though we can expect it in the next few days. But I just looked at the money and the waste of resource, of public resource, because the Waitangi Tribunal's got all uppity and strayed off the reservation. I use the term advisedly. And a sovereign government, an elected government, has said, yeah, get stuffed. We don't have to explain ourselves to you. We are the government. We are the sovereign authority here. You can take your tino rangatiratanga and you can put it where the sun don't shine. So I do not know what the outcome of that case will be. I know what I saw in court yesterday. It was a gross and massive waste of public money for a politically correct argument that most New Zealanders would shake their heads at and say, go and spend the money you spent in court yesterday putting Baby Roo's killers behind bars. And as I say, I looked yesterday at my experiences yesterday and stories that are abroad at the moment, and I put it all together and I said, what a crazy world we live in. What a crazy world we live in, where highly paid lawyers are having completely BS arguments in the highest court in the land, and Baby Roo lies cold in his grave 6 months on and not a single arrest. No one behind bars for covering up evidence or for beating a child to death. Sean, it seems to me that the let's excuse Māori because of colonisation is at play in the Baby Roo case. I bloody hope not. They are constantly told that stale pale males are to blame for everything, and as they grow up, there are no consequences for their actions, says Ian. Sean, usual woke libs deciding what's best for everyone from their ivory tower, whilst people who actually know the system, like Karen Chua, get spoken down to. Basket weaving and straight off the reservation, ha ha ha, that's the Sean we like, and good to have him back, says John. I never went anywhere, John. Sean, is it possible that the Crown prosecution has a role to play in the stalled Baby Roo investigation? Are they asking police to present them with an easy, watertight case, a slam dunk that avoids a messy expo of a potentially race-tainted problem that they don't want to be involved with? Are the CPS a bit precious? Well, I don't know. They charged me with a crime that I'd never committed and wasn't a crime last year, and they withdrew the charges without even going to court, just because someone at the Wanganui District Court was friends with that scumbag David Farrier. I don't know. But they have scaled back the investigation into Baby Roo's death. Do we not care about people killing kids in New Zealand? Simple question. Sean, time to disband the Waitangi Tribunal. Government needs to reprioritise that money. This is a democratically elected government. Oh, no. The Waitangi Tribunal thinks we should be able to run some sort of policy matrix. Was this a good decision? If not, the courts can overturn it. The courts will be very careful here. They are not the government. They are not the government. And that the lawyers for the Waitangi Tribunal and its members are so out of whack as to think the courts take precedent over the Parliament, well, you're nuts. Sean, justice, justice. Why is it a judge that a person can break an old lady's cheekbone and receive a discharge without conviction? Well, no, Fox, that's actually you can. Sean, do you think the Waitangi Tribunal is a distraction to public so to delay progress or change to child violence? No, Maria, I don't. Sean, you clearly didn't hear Pritchard yesterday saying there is no clear evidence that the blunt force trauma on Baby Roo wasn't accident-related rather than deliberately inflicted. Well, that's an easy solve, isn't it, Ash? All the person's got to say, how did the accident happen? And they haven't. Sean, a difficult name to pronounce is easier to forget. Baby Roo will always be remembered. James Whakaruru, there's another name I remember. Delcelia Whitaker, there's another name I remember. The Kahui twins, that's a name I remember. Sean, re Baby Roo, if you want to understand why, explore Inaya Tonune, established in 2018, and the subsequent Te Mana Orete relationship. It was an agreement signed in April 2021 between the Inaya Tonune Kaitiaki and the following justice sector executives of the Crown Law Office's Department. I'll ring in, Vanessa. Tell me about it. Ring in and tell me your story. Sean, the government putteth the tribunal there, the government can taketh away too, says John. Where's that useless police commissioner, Costa? Ask him to come on and see what he has to say over Baby Roo, says Kearley. Completely agree, Sean. Very crazy world. We seem to be losing it. So much is just plain wrong. Now, good on Karen Chua. I'm sorry, but I'm just over Māorification and all the puffery and victimhood, and that in itself saddens me, says Peter. Sean, we're very accepting of violence in this country. It would appear stop the tweaking and twinkering and bring in zero tolerance to such crimes like Baby Roo. Being nice is leading us into a living hell. Sean, Ben, put the jug on. Sean needs a cup of tea already. Sean, Baby Roo is such a refreshing change from puberty blockers, and the cream on top is a bit of Maori bashing. Oh, John, I'm not bashing Maori. I'm saying what a crazy system we have. The millions of dollars that would have been expended at that hearing yesterday. And the people who know what happened to Baby Roo haven't said. And if someone killed Baby Roo, they walk free. That is a nutty world. That is a world where I think we are entitled to ask some questions. And the police are apparently determined to get justice. Well, you don't seem very bloody determined. You seem pretty determined on getting a pay rise, don't you? Police, you seem pretty determined on catching people who paint over rainbow crossings. You seem pretty determined on arresting people for holding signs. So I am not sure, and you seem pretty determined to protect idiots with Palestinian flags who disrupt traffic. But you don't seem that determined, I'm sorry. You don't seem that collectively determined to find baby killers in New Zealand. And goodness me, that would seem to me a very important part, a very, very important part of the job that you do. Sean, interesting how Baby Roo's mother is not screaming every single day, wanting justice and vengeance for her son. Isn't that, Sam? Good point, Sam. Where is Storm Wall? Where's her outrage that her child's killer walks free? I haven't seen any. Isn't that unusual? Shouldn't we ask questions about that? Wouldn't the police be sort of confused by that? Very sad and a stain on our nation, someone says. Sean, we have a dreadful track record as a country regarding child killers and our soft approach towards the perpetrators. Nia Glassy, just another innocent child killed. Well said. Sean, am I missing something? How did we even allow the tribunal to get to start this investigation? Who do they report to? They have no purview for this. I agree completely, Grant. What I saw yesterday was absolute madness in courtroom number 1, the Wellington High Court. Absolute and utter madness, in my humble opinion. And what I didn't see was, and what I would have liked to have seen yesterday in courtroom number 1, I would have liked to see the murder trial of Baby Roo's killers. That would have been a far more uplifting experience, and it would have made me feel safer as a New Zealander. Sean, we need zero tolerance to violence in New Zealand, just like Japan and Singapore. Unfortunately, New Zealand is slipping away, says James. Oh boy, that was quite a rave. But I came back last night. Yesterday afternoon, I went home after this, after being to the court and being to the press conference, and so it just worried me what I'd seen. I'd seen some political rhetoric about 3 strikes, and then I'd gone and seen this gross waste of public money, and I was already thinking yesterday afternoon about the 6-month anniversary of Baby Roo's murder, or death. Unexplained death. And gosh, it all came together last night, and I thought I'd got to talk about that on the netcast tomorrow. Sean, the reality is that the Waitangi Tribunal is setting itself up as an upper house of Parliament, and with ex-Waitangi Tribunal Chair on the Supreme Court, Joe Williams, our justice system will end up endorsing this. Well, Frank, our justice system doesn't decide our form of governance. We do. We, the people, do. And good Lord, if they think they're going to get away with that, they have got another thing coming. All right, we have Marie Dryberg, criminal lawyer, talking about the new 3 strikes proposals after the news, coming up right now because it's 7:10.
News on the platform.
In this update, hope that 3 strikes legislation could be the temporary measure needed. The government's getting ready to bring back the laws which would see mandatory prison sentences for violent and sexual criminals committing a 3rd offence. It'll be slightly different to that. That was scrapped in 2022, only applying to sentences above 24 months. Women's Refuge Chief Executive Ange Jury says she's unsure about the laws, but the community needs to be safe.
So if this is something that is going to help at least until such time as a better answer is found, then it'll do its job.
A pair of Kiwi researchers have launched a world-leading artificial intelligence guide for policymakers. International Science Council President Sir Peter Gluckman's one of two lead researchers releasing a report to help world governments evaluate AI risks and benefits. He says the framework in this report allows us to look at how good and beneficial purposes can be supported and the negative prevented. Despite recent struggles, businesses are feeling optimistic for the upcoming 12 months. A Grant Thornton New Zealand survey shows 51% of businesses are slightly optimistic around economic conditions over the next year. That's up from 32% last year. Prosecutors in Donald Trump's trial in New York have told jurors they have the documents which prove he broke the law. Prosecutors allege he diverted 2016 campaign donations to pay adult film star Stormy Daniels hush money. That's news.
Sport on the platform.
In sport, Scotty Scheffler has clinched a fourth victory in 5 starts, backing up his Masters victory with the tartan jacket at the PGA Tour's RBC Heritage in South Carolina. Warriors coach Andrew Webster believes an announcement around a Shaun Johnson NRL contract extension will come much sooner than it did last year. Webster's adamant he wants the off-contract halfback to play on and stay, and says this year is different as he's got form behind him, unlike the unknown of 2023. A bittersweet return for former Silver Fern Shannon Saunders to netball's ANZ Premiership. The 90-test mid-quarter played 28 minutes in her first game back since giving birth last February, as her Southern Steel side went down 61-52 to the Northern Mystics. That's sport. I'm Jodie Gill.
It's time for climate change on the platform. The weather, brought to you by kiwifertiliser.co.nz. Custom-made biological fertiliser that feeds your .co.nz. Tailor-made biological fertiliser that feeds your soil and your profits. Visit kiwifertiliser.co.nz. All right, you are on the platform. Sean Plunket with you, and gosh, I'm just having a look on the YouTube. It is working. Everything does seem to be working quite perfectly. All my camera's off, though. Just give me a moment, people. I'm just going to adjust the camera. Does that work? I don't know. Ben, we need to have a system of sorting this out because it's not quite where I want it to be. But anyway, as I said, I have opened with a bit of a rave this morning. Geez, I'll tell you what would have been nice, and someone sent me a text. Wouldn't it be great if the Waitangi Tribunal decided to subpoena Storm Wall and all the people in that flat in Nainai who know what happened around the death of Baby Roo? Wouldn't it be more useful if the Waitangi Tribunal had a look at that and went to the High Court in Wellington to try and get them to front up and tell the truth? Funny old world, isn't it? But as I said yesterday, 1:30, I go down to a press conference held by the Associate Justice Minister, Nicole McKee, from New Zealand First. She's New Zealand First or ACT? ACT. Nicole McKee, ACT or New Zealand First? Nicole McKee, ACT or ACT? Nicole, so she's the Associate Minister of Justice. And the Prime Minister, ticking things off his little plan there, Christopher Luxon. And they announced, well, basically a reboot of 3 Strikes. And 3 Strikes was, I guess in its basic form, a very popular policy about making people feel like they're getting tough on criminals. And we all want to be tough on criminals, don't we? It was basically if you got on your third offence for certain offences, you would basically, they'd lock you up and throw away the key and give you the maximum sentence. Most inquiry into 3 strikes suggest it wasn't very effective in actually reducing crime, but it made people feel good. So the government has put a retread, I think, on 3 strikes, and will introduce it June, I think, probably passed by the end of July. To find out what impact it might have, what was wrong with the last scheme and whether or not those problems have been fixed, we're joined by someone who spends a bit of time with criminals in terms of working for them and defending them in our judicial system, Marie Dryberg from the Auckland District Law Society. In fact, she's its president. Marie, nice to talk to you again. How are you?
Thanks. I'm good, Sean. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Okay, so we've had this law before, and I think Labor repealed it. It was an ACT law to start with. What was wrong with it last time?
What it was last time is it proved what internationally those jurisdictions that had these mandatory sentences established. And those changes were made overseas. We made changes because, one, the punishment should always fit the crime, and we were getting disproportionate sentences, whereby when you look at the circumstances of an offence, you look at the offender themselves, then they either got a sentence that they would never have got had they been just judged discreetly by a judge taking all those factors. So unfortunately, harsher punishment does not ever necessarily address offending behaviour. And we know that we moved into a more rehabilitative kind of environment because we know that if you put a bracelet on somebody's ankle, send them off to drug or alcohol rehabilitation or anger management, any of those programs, we were seeing they made positive changes in their lives. And of course, what we all want is less serious crime, and it works. The programs are not available in prison. All it did was increase the prison population. No
by how
proof
much?
That these, but the percentages would have to be at least by 40%. We had people who were being imprisoned that would normally not be in prison.
But if they were bad bastards 3 times, Marie, why not throw the book at them?
Well, that's what the general attitude is for a lot of people out there, and I know that some people will be saying that, but I also come across people who are victims in crime. I come across people who are affected by crime, and the general public in New Zealand are saying, we want it to stop. We want these people not to create more victims.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there were people being caught by this legislation that are being put into prison with no prospect. They're going to come out without any great improvement in their attitude.
Happens anyway, though, doesn't it?
Well, not as much as this mandatory sentencing that takes the discretion away from a judge. Now, a judge can impose all sorts of conditions and say, look, I'm not going to sentence you. I'm going to wait until you undergo this anger management and the drug rehabilitation. You come back, it might take 6 months, 9 months, then I'll decide if I'll sentence you. And these people make progress during this time. Their circumstances are different, and the prospects of them not reoffending are greatly enhanced. Never going to happen if you put people in prison. We all know, the police know, we know, harsh sentences do not stop crime. We all want it to stop or at least be reduced.
Well, they stop crime from the people who are inside prison. While they're in prison, Marie. You can't, no one can burgle my home when they're in chokey.
They can drug deal in prison, they can commit offences, they can extort people so that you might have somebody in prison you know and you're paying into a bank account.
I don't have anyone I know in prison, thank goodness. Marie, what about the new law? And they have made some changes, and there was admission yesterday from the Minister and the Prime Minister that 3 strikes last time had some flaws in it. Has anything been done to address those flaws from what you have seen?
not that's going to be constructive. Like they have said that you have to hit the 2-year mark before you qualify for 3 strikes. Well, that's quite a low barrier for a lot of offending. Most people who come before the court are facing maximum in terms of imprisonment that are beyond that. They may not get beyond that, but that's what the maximum term is. So you get certain assaults, you might get certain driving offences where there's been a death. You will get some sexual offences that take you beyond that 2-year mark, but they are the people that are more at risk of what we call a disproportionate sentence, where the punishment exceeds what really in all the circumstances fit that particular crime. So it doesn't really make a difference, and we're still going to get those inequalities. They say that the judges have some discretion so that there's exceptional circumstances, but that's rare because it means you have to step outside the norm. Most people fit the norm. Why did you commit this offence? You can look at them, but they're not exceptional. So those alleged changes aren't going to, in my view,
well, they say it's only going to affect 90 people. Only 90 people, 90 offenders will fall under the 3 strikes law, under the new.
We shall see. I don't accept that you can quantify that, and those figures. I don't know where they come from, but we are going to definitely have more people under this regime. It's not that much different from the last, that people are being put in prison. They're put in prison for a much longer time due to the 3 strikes than they normally would. That will not change. I don't care whether they say it's affecting 90 people. Maybe in the 3rd strike it might, but it's going to still affect a great number of people who would normally not be in prison either at all that long.
I guess the thing is not to commit crime, Marie.
Well, let's try and help people stop committing crime by giving them realistic, by all means, punishment. By all means, do not take away
it's simpler than that. You just don't do criminal stuff, Marie.
Well, that's easy
no one
to
needs.
say,
I don't need help to not be a criminal.
Yes, you might have a very different background from a lot of people I see. And I see how people get caught up in crime. I see how it can stop for them. And I wish people would listen to me. It's not that easy to say, well, I don't do it, therefore nobody else needs to. We don't have the backgrounds many people have. It would break your heart if you listened and you knew the backgrounds.
All right. I also note that probably the measures announced yesterday aren't going to put the killers of baby ruthless empire behind bars. Seeing I've got you here, what do you think about that? It's been 6 months since a 2-year-old beaten to death, blunt force trauma, no arrests, the scene of the crime interfered with, no arrests, conspiracy to destroy evidence, no arrests. And really, I mean, I've made the observation this morning, you can take your 3 strikes and stick it where the sun don't shine if you can't catch a baby killer and there are only 3 suspects.
The terrible situation for us in New Zealand, and every time it's not my case and I read those incidents where babies, and you see the photos of them where they're such happy children, they're smiling for a camera, and we just sit and weep. I feel I want to weep right now, but if it takes time to get the right person's charge, we have to take the time. And I think that we see these cases, everybody says how terrible it is, and then life goes on in a normal way. We can pick
and we don't always catch them. We don't bring them to justice, Marie. So I'm just wondering why the government doesn't put in more effort into dealing with cases like that than 3 strikes, which I kind of tend to agree with you is a bit of a PR move, a bit of a let's get tough on the crims political move.
We can pick those. Anybody can pick the at-risk families right from the very beginning. And the resources need to go into those families to protect the children, to give the assistance that those people have. If you've got somebody who's in a home that's a real danger in that home, it's often hidden, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you can't uplift now because you might be breaking some cultural rules, Marie.
I don't have a problem at all with taking babies, children, teenagers.
Well, that's funny, isn't it? Because the other thing I went to
situations.
yesterday was a judicial review hearing at the High Court in Wellington, where the Waitangi Tribunal is sticking its nose into the government pursuing exactly the sort of policies you do agree with, saying that your ethnicity has nothing to do with whether you're uplifted, and we're going to put children first in a rangatamariki policy, not political correctness.
If you have to uplift children, don't block the parents, because that's not going to help, but you have to take children at risk out of a dangerous situation, and they can be identified, and we just have to have the courage within the schools, within the kindies, within wherever we see it, to say we must remove them, and we will work with the families, because you don't want them, the children, isolated from the families, but you have to take them out of unsafe situations. We only end up then with criminals at a later life, and what a life for a child to live in fear and pain. It just breaks my heart.
Oh, look, I couldn't agree more with that. Do you think it's the role of a tribunal like the Waitangi Tribunal to critique or attempt to overturn or criticise a government that makes decisions around things like child welfare in line with the policies that it's promised during an election campaign?
I think any tribunal, any court, anybody who has a voice, who might be able to offer some constructive critiquing or advice or whatever, whether it's accepted or not, should be allowed to speak. This is a problem that affects all New Zealanders. This is our society, and we are having children who are just being abused, and we see what happens.
Well, I think it's strange, Marie, I think it's strange that the Waitangi Tribunal is trying to compel a minister of the Crown to speak and justify decisions she's made in the interest of protecting children, and we can't compel the three people who know what happened to baby Ruthless Empire to speak.
That is your conundrum. That is definitely that we end up, there are children who get hidden away who are suffering terrible injuries. It's only when a child dies that we become aware of that, and it's the hardest thing in the world. And of course I acted for the mother in Kahui, and the inquest completely exonerated her, completely, but the dreadful environment, the allegations she faced, and it diverted away because the focus went on her instead of trying to find out or prepare.
Who did kill the
Kahui
really twins then?
Well, the inquest found that it was the father who had the sole responsibility. That was the inquest.
Yeah. Was he? Yeah, so what happened to him?
Well, he got acquitted at trial.
Yeah. Something's wrong, isn't it?
We've got to put energy into protecting these vulnerable children.
I hear you.
For all sorts of reasons.
Okay, and you're saying, and let's get back to where we started, that 3 strikes doesn't really do that. That 3 strikes is a piece of political window dressing, even under its reviewed form. Oh, I think we lost. Did we lose it? Did we lose her there? Or was that me? Just died. Oh, are we there, Marie? No, we've lost it. That's okay. Look, we'll leave it there. That was a very interesting discussion. And I talked to Marie because she's got vast experience and she has been involved directly in the sort of cases we're talking about. But she said, there is our conundrum. And there is the conundrum that we live in a country where the Waitangi Tribunal is spending, I presume, millions of dollars trying to get Karen Chua, the minister responsible for saying why she did something to protect kids. And we can't compel the scum suckers who know what happened to baby Roo to say what they think. Something's wrong in this world. Let's take a break.
Output Envy's garden hoses are everything you've ever wanted. Precise water control, great flexibility with quality stainless steel fittings. Our hoses are free from nasty chemicals, kink resistant, durable and as light as a feather. Check out our award-winning soaker hose, which comes in a stylish earthy matte colour that virtually disappears into any landscape. The Output Envy range is a garden hose game changer that also looks fantastic. Make your garden truly organic. Visit outputenvy.com today and be the envy of your neighbours.
Hi, I'm Anne DeLefter, licensed real estate salesperson for Ray White. If you are selling a property in Auckland City, my approach is more than generating competition among buyers. It's a special auction process that leaves not a single dollar of your hard-earned cash on the table. In addition, I work hard to present your home with fantastic photography and video that hit the mark with buyers aspiring to live in your suburb. So let's talk today. Call me on 022 108 7577 to get started now.
That's the Easy Build way.
Do you want your town to be the next hotspot weather location? Email your suggestion to hello@theplatform.kiwi. Brought to you by Easy Build. Quality Kiwi homes built fast, designed to last. Call us on 0800 232 792.
That's the Easy Build way.
Longridge Country Estate Retirement Village in the central, vibrant town of Paeroa offers quality 2 and 3 bedroom villas and a relaxed country town lifestyle that needs to be seen to be appreciated. Come and see it for yourself. They're open daily from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Inquire about their special offers available now. Call Longridge today to find out more on 0800 928 928. That's 0800 928 928.
Mate, have you bought a rapid dry towel for your car yet?
He's still going on about those things. Bro, it's just a towel.
A rapid dry towel is not just a towel. It is the towel. The thirstiest towel on earth. This sucker will dry off a whole average-sized car perfectly from start to finish in under 3 minutes with no wringing out. This is God's towel.
Rapid Dry Towels now available at Briscoe's nationwide or rapiddrytowels.com to buy online or find your nearest stockist.
Plunket Unchained on the platform.
And you are on the platform. Wow, some response to our chat with Marie Dyberg. Thank you, Marie, for coming in. Don't know what happened at the end there. And you spoke your truth, and that has engendered a reaction. Sean, describing the death of Baby Roo, and you can ring in, please. We've got, 7-8 minutes. What did you think of Marie's approach? 0800 33 2283. And I just want to hear your views and thoughts on the 6-month anniversary of the brutal killing of Baby Ruthless Empire in Nainai, and the fact that no one has been brought to justice for it. Jurors need not prove an option as well as guilty or not guilty. Then the Kahukili could... bro, I don't quite get that. Ring me. Marie sounds like a defence lawyer apologist. The mentality is a huge part of the problem. Everyone is entitled to legal representation. Sean, if 3 strikes didn't work, then don't dump it. I suggest 2 strikes or maybe just 1, says Scott. Sean, all who are suspects of killing children and don't reveal the truth, all should go to jail. I'm sure those who know would squeal quickly if they were going to jail if no one came forward. Look at Kahui twins. No one is paying for this crime because both who are involved aren't taking responsibility and hiding the truth. Those in the family who know what happened should also have the government assistance cancelled too. How the hell does a victim of serious crime have more patience and understanding of the criminal's life circumstances? Thank you, Sean. I'm proud to be a platform listener today. You actually chase the real issues. I really appreciate you firing those hard, critical questions while baby killers run free. Sean, weep as much you like for Baby Roo, Marie. For me, lawyers who represent their clients and know they're guilty of the crime, I view them as criminal as well. And that's Philip. Okay. Sean, describing the death of Baby Roo and the other infants as murder sanitises what actually happened. These babies suffered a life of constant premeditated evil torture until they succumbed. The charges should be for torture, physical and mental. Kids are being tortured right now and people know it's happening If they don't say something, they are guilty too. I hear you, Alex. 3 strikes doesn't have to reduce crime. It's good enough just getting serial violent offenders out of society. As I said to Marie, it doesn't stop crime. It does stop violent crime by people who are in prison. I can't get mugged by someone who's in prison. I can't get murdered by someone behind bars. So yes, it does, Marie. Sorry, and call me simplistic, but I think it's just logical. Ray, g'day.
Hi. First time I texted you and you didn't understand what I meant.
Yeah, okay. What did you mean?
With the Kahui case,
yeah,
he was found not guilty, and I assume it's because the jury couldn't say he was guilty.
Yeah.
We need it not proved so that they can go back and retry them.
Yeah.
Like they do in
I wonder if she
Scotland
gave
and
all the
Wales.
evidence she could have. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I hear you,
We
Ray.
could charge the whole 3 of them in joint.
Yeah, no one, the Kahui twins, their murderer walks free. That's just the
but
truth
if
of
they
it.
charge,
Yeah.
if they charge the whole 3 of them
Yeah.
with accessory to murder
Or
whatever,
conspiracy
I
to
bet
pervert
one
the
of them
course
would
of
talk.
justice. Yeah. But they're just scum, aren't they?
Yeah, and these poor little babies, it just goes on and on and on.
Hang on. I hear you, Ray. I don't think 3 strikes is going to change it either, unfortunately. Sean, in cases such as Baby Roo, where all the participants resist, why can't the police charge all of them? Exactly. Then the truth might come out. I think we're all thinking on the same lines there, Malcolm. Sean, her caring attitude is understandable. She mentions these poor children raised by criminals in fear. So what has been done in the last decades haven't worked. Time to get tough and try a new approach, says Kevin. Sean, Maria's on the defence lawyer Kool-Aid. I've spoken to numerous prisoners on their second strike, and it genuinely weighs on their mind. We never saw the real figures from the last 3 strikes as the judges took a protest vote and overturned every single third strike on the grounds of it being manifestly unjust, even when the third strike offence was for murder. Yeah, I hear you, Shay. Sean, we do not have anything like the United States where if you're an accessory, you are charged with the same crime, murder, says Kevin. Sean, have the Greens or Te Pāti Māori made any comment on Baby Roo, hypocrite a-holes? No, of course they won't. Mind you, it's been a bit quiet all round this morning, or are we just not listening anymore? Sean, do you really care about Baby Ruthless, or is this just an excuse to bash Māori? Maybe leave Māori issues to Māori, stick to transgender stuff. You seem to be obsessed with that. Oh, it's the transgender Māori baby killers that really get me going, mate. I note that your text is anonymous. You are welcome to ring in and have a wee discussione with me. Of course I care about babies. Of course, I don't think that people should kill their kids. Of course, I don't think that doctors should surgically mutilate confused children. So there we go. There we go. Sean, I love the idea of charging them all, says Josh. So basically it's okay for Maori to bash and kill their kids because it's racist to question their lifestyle. You might think that. I couldn't possibly comment, could I? Instead of my tax dollars going to families to have kids, they're going to kill anyway. Can my tax dollars pay them not to have them? What a beautiful idea. What a beautiful idea. Sean, anything to make criminals think twice before they commit any crime must be good. The problem with criminals is before they commit crimes, they don't even think once. And that is the problem. Sean, we were just told to help the criminals to stop reoffending. Let's have sympathy and understanding for the killers of Baby Roo. Let's not. Let's catch him and lock him up. Both things we seem incapable of doing at present. All right, it is coming up to 8 o'clock on the platform. That is news time.
News on the platform.
In this update, Women's Refuge says it will be a waiting game as to whether 3 strikes legislation is effective. The government is preparing to reintroduce mandatory prison sentences for violent and sexual criminals committing a third offence, this time only applying to sentences above 24 months. Women's Refuge Chief Executive Ange Jury says in some instances, incarceration is only one way to ensure safety.
That they need to be getting some help while they're in there. change that behaviour, and that's the bit that is missing from this equation.
Jury says there was no indication it worked last time, but something needs to be done. Around 2,500 resident doctors are set to strike for 25 hours on May 7. The doctors are employed by Health New Zealand, and the strike notice has been issued by the Resident Doctors Association. The union says bargaining has reached an impasse. It's been revealed the ram that killed an elderly couple on a West Auckland property last week was owned by neighbours and had broken through an electric fence before the attack. It's still not clear if the ram was being kept in a paddock on the couple's land or was being kept on a completely separate property when it escaped. A neighbour who didn't want to be named but was not the owner of the ram says the community on Anzac Valley Road, Waitakere, has been in a grey mood since the deaths of the Hansons last Thursday. Controversy across the Tasman over whether babies belong at stand-up comedy shows. Flight of the Conchords star Arj Barker is defending asking breastfeeding mother Trish Ferranda to leave his Melbourne comedy show on Saturday because her baby was disrupting his performance. Ferranda has hit back in an interview with Channel 10 last night, describing the experience as embarrassing. She was breastfeeding her baby during the interview, only for it to be ironically disrupted by the baby crying.
Just sort of get back to sort of a pre-baby me. Yeah, and hey, super cranky right now.
Okay, maybe she can go to Dad just for a quick second.
That's news.
Sport on the platform.
In sport, Crusaders CEO Colin Mansbridge has ruled out a mid-season coaching change despite their shock Super Rugby predicament. The defending champions are marooned at the bottom of the competition ladder after just one win from 8 matches. Coach Rob Penny is in the first year of a 2-season deal, having taken over from Scott Robertson. Mansbridge says the organisation is focusing on ensuring the coaches and players have the support they need. A Monday morning finish has been no obstacle to Scotty Scheffler's golfing supremacy rolling on. The American world number 1 has claimed a 3-shot win at the RBC Heritage in South Carolina, his 4th victory in 5 tournaments. The Northern Mystics have held off the Southern Steel 61-52 in their ANZ Premiership netball clash in Invercargill. That's sport. I'm Jodie Gill.
It's time for climate change on the platform. The weather, brought to you by kiwifertiliser.co.nz. Custom-made biological fertiliser that feeds your soil and your crops.
Stories about Tarka.
That was today's weather hotspot location, brought to you by Easy Build. Quality modular homes built fast, designed to last. Visit us at easybuild.co.nz.
That's the Easy Build way.
All right, look, really interesting morning so far. Tarka, I'll hold off on Tarka. Gosh, the text is going off about, well, the Baby Roo case. 6 months since someone beat a less than 2-year-old child to death in the Hutt Valley in Wellington, not a single arrest. No justice. And this anniversary comes as the government says it's getting tough on crime with 3 strikes. And the Waitangi Tribunal wastes inordinately high amounts of government money, taxpayers' money, suggesting that it has the right to tell a government what to do, policy-wise. So we live in a completely insane world. Now, I want to ask you a question, I want you to ring in and give me your answer or give me your perceptions of what's going on, because this situation with Baby Roo is so weird. Now, the police say they've scaled back their inquiry, but they're confident they'll get justice. It is 6 months on since this kid died. Only 3 people could possibly have done it, and they all know, or at least one of them knows what happened. The house, evidence was removed from the house where this happened. There has been a conspiracy, clearly, and nothing. Now, let's just ask a question, and I want you to ring in and give me your answer. Do you think the police are utterly friggin' incompetent? Do you think they don't care? Do you think they do not have the legal tools to do the job they need? If your answer is 3, do we need to give them the legal tools to do the job they need to do and get justice for Baby Roo? Or do we need less incompetent police? Do you believe them when they say we'll get there? Is there some clever strategy here that allows a child killer or child killers to walk free for more than 6 months? Do you think the police have a plan that will catch these killers? Or do you think Baby Roo's brutal death is in the too hard basket? Ring me on 0800 332283, and I want you to tell me if you are more interested in the 3 strikes policy or catching Baby Roo's killer/killers. 0800 332283. And if it is incompetence and it is not being able to do anything, let's show your disapproval and let's create enough impetus to get this done. Sean, JT or Willie can explain everything. Get them on the line. The answer is obvious. Institutionalised colonisation. Sean, a taxpayer-funded tribunal was challenged by the taxpayer-funded government under the watchful eye of the taxpayer-funded court over who must speak to whom while the taxpayer was busy getting taxed. Brett, that's exactly where I got to after about 5 minutes in the High Court yesterday. I thought, my God, we are paying for these wankers to argue with each other. And it makes no difference to the real lives of any New Zealanders. Paul.
Yeah, mate. Halfway between agreeing with you and halfway between angry. Getting a little sick of the old police bashing. As a father of a police officer and someone who knows what they go through.
And I do know that, which is why I asked the question. Yeah, but come on, 6 months. Yeah, you're kidding me.
Yeah, no, let me get to my point. They feel hamstrung too. They're of the belief, trust me, I sit here with groups of them at times, that the judiciary needs a major, major overhaul. People are saying, oh, lock them all up. They haven't got the powers to do it, Sean.
The judiciary's got nothing to do with the Baby Roo case, Paul. They're not even involved yet.
No, because they know if they charge all 3 of them and it goes to court, the whole lot will walk. This happens all the time for them, Sean. They'll get a case, something that looks to us cut and dried. They get one little thing wrong and they walk. They scrutinise.
Well, then don't get anything wrong.
Yes, it's easy to say that. Smart-ass lawyer, one bit of wording and out it goes. Out the bloody door. It's kind of frustrating. Part of me...
This isn't a bloody Agatha Christie case, Paul. The kid was at that house. The injuries sustained more than 12 hours. We know who was in that house. We know that people used a car to take evidence away from that friggin' house. I mean, honestly, it's like join the friggin' dots or a game of Cluedo.
Exactly. And if we had the powers to change the law to the fact, instead of innocent until proven guilty, in the case of baby murder, it was guilty until proven innocent, lock them all up. I agree 100%. But those laws don't exist. Do you see the problem?
I'd say you get them on conspiracy to pervert.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the law is in that case. If it was there, I'm damn sure they'd use it. I'm damn sure they would. I agree with you. My personal belief is I would lock all 3 of them up and you just stay there.
Yeah.
You stay there. but we legally can't do it. That's why I say it's the whole judiciary laws thing. We need to have a real major reset, Sean.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you this. I am inclined to think, Paul, that the whole 3 strikes is a crock of shite if you can't catch baby ruse killers.
To some extent unrelated, but I think the three strike thing is a bloody good thing. And just listening to that lady talking, to me, that was part of the problem.
All right.
Was, let's rehabilitate them, let's give them a hug. This is the sort of stuff that the frontline guys are fighting all the time.
I hear you, Paul.
They don't want to give them a hug. They want to bloody well lock them up. Who's the people you call when something goes wrong?
Yeah.
The other week there was James calling them pigs, another guy calling them the Keystone Cops. Those are the sort of people, when something goes wrong, are hiding under their bed, wetting themselves, waiting for the police to come.
All right. I thank you for your call.
I'm sorry to be
No, fair enough, Paul. I asked for your opinion. You gave it to me. Good on you. 0800 33 2283. Sean, you're not a detective. How about just shut up, leave the investigation to the police and trust the process? Well, we've trusted the frickin' process, haven't we? And where's it got us? 6 months, it's got us nowhere. Nada zip. Where did it get us in the Kahui twins? Nowhere, nada zip. Sean, save money on school lunches and give it to the police. Oh, I like that. Andy, we'll talk to you. Sean, do the police have the power to arrest them for perverting the course of justice? I think they do, Susie. Oh, but no, we know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. Well, do you? Do you actually? Andy, welcome.
Hey, Sean, morning. My opinion of the police is like Michael's. They get worse. That's just my personal perspective over my lifetime.
Well, they don't tend to kill babies, so I'm not putting them... They're not the worst people in our society, and they're trying to do a hard job, but...
No, I agree. But what I think has happened is they're just like... There's a percentage of people in that organisation, like every organisation, and they don't want to do their job. They don't want to work. It seems to all be a little bit too hard. I know a few people who are ex-policemen, served for, 10 plus years, each of them, and they've left due to the fact that the police is not aligning with their moral code and their way of being a good, responsible human being,
Andy, what would you rather, if it was a choice, we could catch the baby killers or we have 3 strikes, what would you rather have?
I'd rather than do what that cop dad said and just lock them all up. I mean, they've already got laws on the books that they're not using.
Yeah.
What's a go? We don't need more writing. That no law has ever stopped a crime.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple and straightforward from my practical, logical way of thinking as well, Sean.
I hear you, Andy.
We're in.
But Marie Dargu says we've just got to give the wee sweeties a little bit of a hug.
Every time she opens her mouth, I lose more respect for her.
Oh, Andy, that's pretty strong.
Well, talk's cheap, isn't it?
I get you. I understand. Andy, I thank you for ringing in and sharing with us. Boy, we've got the calls starting to stack up. Now, it's real simple, guys. If you had a choice, 3 strikes policy or we catch all the people who kill babies in New Zealand. I'm going to be honest, screw 3 strikes. Let's catch the baby killers. Let's charge them. Let's put them behind bars. Let's make them pay for killing innocents. That's real law and order. 6 months, by the way, the 6-month anniversary of the brutal killing of baby Ruthless Empire, or Baby Roo. Paul has a point. Police are hamstrung by the laws and the courts are a joke, says Catherine. Look, Dave, Cameron, Maria, we're going to take a commercial break and then I can deal with all your calls. We can get through it. Benny, if we go to a quick break and get that done.
Output Envy's award-winning hoses feature a world-class design with no-leak commercial-grade tap fittings. Our quality hoses last longer and contain none of the nasty chemicals found in cheap plastic hoses. Plus, our fittings are lead-free, so hoses are completely safe to drink from, making them perfect for filling pet bowls, kids' water activities, and using in the caravan or motorhome. Available in 3 very stylish colours: copper, eggplant, and olive. Be the envy of your neighbours. Visit outputenvy.com today. Proud to be official supporters of the SPCA.
Sometimes the grass is greener, but with Lawnmaster, the grass is just better. Lawnmaster have been providing hard-working products for hard-working Kiwis for over 75 years. Their range of high-quality and reliable lawnmowers have Kiwi yards covered, and with hedge trimmers, chainsaws, leaf blowers, and more, they've got the gear for any job. Master your garden with Lawnmaster, your 100% New Zealand-owned outdoor power specialist. Go to lawnmaster.co.nz, another Steelfort brand.
Take the stress out of dairy effluent and wastewater management. Effluex by Microbio Solutions is the new way to clean up while increasing the fertiliser value of your irrigation in one easy step. For more information, go to microbio.co.nz. 100% Kiwi owned.
Plunket Unchained on the platform.
Wow, we've got a lot of calls coming in, and please take part in the conversation on 0800 33 2283. What would you rather have, a 3 strikes law, or that we actually catch baby killers and send them to prison, if you had to make a choice? Dave the Brickie, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, Sean. How are you?
Very well.
Hey, I'll tell you, Sean, I feel your frustration on this, and I found myself, as you were sort of editorialising this morning, thinking, good, you know, with despair, I wonder how many more times in my life we're going to have this conversation. But I want to just go back to Paul's call.
Yeah.
Because he's unfortunately absolutely on the money.
Yeah.
My big takeaway from your conversation with Marie Dyberg was that she sounded quite elated that Maxina King had been completely cleared of any responsibility in the Kahui twins.
She did, didn't she?
But the problem with that, Sean, is to my mind, frankly, Maxina King and Chris Kahui should be in jail today.
Yep.
But unfortunately, it's not the way our bloody system works. And people have got to remember that the Kahui case actually went to trial and he got off. And that's what Paul's talking about here. So nobody's gone to jail on the Kahui twins, and nobody ever will. And I don't know, smarter minds than me, Sean, built this system, and I'd like to think smarter minds than me can fix it, because I think the system
it feels broken. And that was the thing, mate.
Broken, mate.
Yesterday, I sit in this press conference at the back, I don't ask a question, and I see the political rhetoric, and of course, the kids, the teenagers in the press gallery all try to catch Luxon out, and then I walk literally 3 minutes across the road, and I go into courtroom number 1, and I see millions of dollars being expended over an esoteric political argument where the Waitangi Tribunal is trying to tell the government what to do. And I just think, and then I'm already thinking about the 6-month anniversary of Baby Roo, and I'll be honest, driving to work this morning, I was thinking, stop the world, I want to get off, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what I meant when I listened to you this morning when I first turned on. Is I despair at how many more times in my life we will have this conversation.
Yeah,
I just remember too many of them already.
And we've had those conversations, Dave, over many years. I know exactly what you mean.
Absolutely, we have. I mean, as a dad, you just shiver and shudder, and like I said. I hate to actually endorse Paul, but he's unfortunately right. I am sure, but generally speaking, the police in this case won results.
Yeah.
And so much of it's out of their hands.
Yeah.
And I've been no great friend of the police at times.
Yeah. Well, Dave, the only thing keeping me going, the fact is the Crusaders are doing so poorly.
Well, I don't waste any heartbeats on ball sports anyway, Sean, so it doesn't bother me in the slightest.
All right, mate. Hey, thank you for your call.
I'm a car guy, not a ball guy. But anyway, like I said, my takeaway from that conversation with Marie Dyberg was not a pleasant one, mate.
I hear you. And I thank you for your call.
Cheers,
boy, we've got some calls. Okay. Cameron, how are you, Cameron?
Yeah, good morning, Sean.
Hey, a work colleague of mine about 6 or 8 months ago, his dream job was the police force, and he got accepted into the police college. An older gentleman, he'd be like 40s, had a bit of life experience.
It's not older, that's
Would've
still
made
a
really
spring
good
chicken,
job.
mate.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
And I run into him back at work the other day, and I said, how'd you get on? He said, no. He said, Jesus Christ, you just spent the whole time they were teaching you how to be culturally sensitive and, you know, how to pander to the cultures and learning bloody hakas and all this stuff. He said, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I thought, that just feeds into everything, doesn't it? Like, doesn't that just explain why they are spending more time chasing the rainbow bloody crossing painters than these kid killers?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, Cameron. And I do hear this. In fact, I hear reports that inside the police there are kind of two camps. There is the practical, let's catch criminals and be part of the community camp, and then there is the let's tick all the right boxes and be politically correct and be rainbow tick approved camp.
These guys need to realise Labor's gone, man. Let's get with the program.
Yeah. But how do you do that? Well, how do you do that when Costa's still at the front and he's so much identified with woke policing, Cameron? That's the question.
I can't understand why he's there. I mean, shit, I thought he would have been the first casualty, but yeah. Well, obviously he's got a contract to run out, but
So, Cameron, which would you rather have? Would you rather have a 3 strikes policy, or would you rather put baby killers behind bars?
Oh, 100% baby killers. The cost on society of that is just huge, isn't it?
Yeah. And I wonder if Chris Luxon worries, Cameron, I wonder if he sits there and thinks, you know, the killers of baby ruthless empire have been free for as long as I've been the Prime Minister pretty well. Yeah.
I guarantee he doesn't, mate.
Well, he bloody well should.
Yeah, good man.
He bloody well should. Cameron, thank you for your call, mate. 0800 33 2283 is the number to call. Sean, John Tim screwed up the Kahui case as detective inspector and got rewarded by being promoted to deputy commissioner. Well, ring and tell me about that. I do not know those circumstances. Sean, for Christ's sake, calm down. We need you at work, not in hospital. Ben, get the jug on, says Bernie. I'm fine. I am absolutely clear-minded about what the hell's going on here. And don't worry, this isn't my blood pressure. It's my sense of moral outrage is pretty high, I must admit. Brett, how are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm good, mate. Hey, to answer your question, plain and simply, there's no reason why we can't have 3 strikes and we can't put baby killers away, because most baby killers don't do it 3 times for a start.
Yeah.
But the other thing I'm going to turn around and say, which will probably upset a few people, is if that baby was white, I guarantee there would have been an arrest.
Yeah, Brett, I think that's a valid speculation to have. And I must admit, look, this is a rhetorical question, the question between 3 strikes and catching the baby killers. But I just cannot believe how disinterested this country is in the fate of Ruthless Empire and the 3 people, all of whom might be baby killers, walking the streets. Are we not concerned that we have
I'll
child
disagree with
killers?
you right there, Sean.
Yeah?
I'll disagree with that statement right there. Mainstream media is not interested in baby ruse killers, but you got people reminding you week in, week out
And
that
it's
baby
good.
ruse killers are still walking free.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to
Well,
remember.
look, hey, hang on. Don't get hard on mainstream media. The Post this morning, their whole front page, baby
well,
ruse.
that's nice for a change, you know.
Yeah.
But for that lawyer you had on before, she's just an apologist. That's all she is. You know, she's apologising to criminals. She's not interested because she gets paid to defend them. And that's her job. So she apologises for them. It's that plain and simple.
Boy, it's a harsh call, but it's one you're justified in making, Brett. And I thank you for ringing in, mate. I hear you.
Thanks, Sean.
Cheers. Sean, don't forget that wee chap in Christchurch that you had us all in tears reading his report of abuse out that day. Didn't die, but we find out what happened to his abusers? Sarah, I should remember, I don't. Just jog my memory. Sean, it's understandable police don't want to charge these child abusers with murder and have them get off, but there must be charges that would stick while a solid case is made for the more serious charges, says Wayne. I'm just wondering how you can be a member of, I don't know, what's her name, Storm Wall, how you can be a member of her family or the whānau, and how the whānau can't basically pressure these people into handing themselves in and telling the truth. What happened to the wonderful mataringi Māori way of fairness and forgiving and all the magic? Oh, no, but you kill your kids, we don't want to know. Where's the iwi? Where's the hapu? Where's the great sense of togetherness, guys? Bullshit. These people, if we had a decent society, these people would be sent to Coventry, the child killers. They would be ostracised, and it'd be the one instance that I'd say cancel culture's all right. But they can just walk amongst other people with no one batting an eyelid. And I think that makes the people who tolerate them, who don't pressure them to do the right thing, think that makes them just as bad. Sean, take all 3 suspects in the Baby Roo matter and pop them in prison. You will very quickly find out who killed him. People committing offences against children are not treated well by the other inmates. Sean, why is the question either or? We should have both, catch baby killers and 3 strikes. Pete, it is a rhetorical question designed to engage you. Because at the moment, and actually it's not that rhetorical, at the moment we don't have both. We have 3 strikes, or the promise of 3 strikes, and we're not catching the baby killers very often. Sean, why haven't white New Zealanders learned from the Māori how to get off killing kids? How dumb are those whiteys? Morning, Sean. It's not a case of one or other. Well, it is at the moment. Because if the baby killers probably have or will continue to cause major crimes, a parasite is a parasite, says Jamie. Sean, can you start a petition? Not my job to start a petition. You can start a petition. But what does the petition ask for? Sean, this is a big call. I'd love this person to ring me. I'll read out their text. Sean, no one will ever be charged for baby ruthless. Basic reason, the entire family is evil and surrounded in evil. Dozens and dozens of feral families simply don't care about the baby being killed. They just want to continue their substandard lives, largely on the taxpayers' funds. Costa's okay. It's his boss that has shortcomings. Sean, I believe in the death penalty for kid killers. Mark Siatu. Thank you, Mark. Sean, I'm sure this is one of the most emotional topics I've heard you cover. 3 strikes is a sticking plaster. Too many, too much for too long of criminals being pampered. The police are at fault here with Baby Roo, as they were with the Kahui twins. We should prioritise these cases. Instead, in the last 6 months, the hunt for the killer or killers of Baby Roo has been scaled back. What's the cunning plan you're working into? I just don't get the feeling that the police are about to call everyone into the dining room and explain what happened with this crime of the century, the killing of Baby Roo. I don't think they've got any idea, and I think they've thrown up their hands in absolute frustration, which is bloody sad. Bloody sad. Sean, we are running an experiment in policing. People need to read the book, The End of Policing, by sociologist Alex Vitale. That's what we're trying. Are we, Jim? I haven't seen that in the government policy. Sean, you're more likely to go to court for shoplifting than killing a baby? Well, shoplifting seems to be pretty well open slather these days, a bit like baby killing, really. Sean, 3 to 5k a head would most likely save taxpayers more money, as we wouldn't need a trial anymore, if you know what I mean. Oh, I don't like that idea. Sean, what are the Greens? Where are the Greens and Chloe? They seem more interested in Palestinians than baby murderers in New Zealand. Mike, that's a damn good point. That is a damn good point you make, Mike, I must admit. Well put. Well put. Sean, I think 3 strikes is a good idea, but imprisoning 3 people for a single death without knowing who did it won't lead us to finding out who did, but encourage false confessions. That's defence lawyer Tom. Love to hear from you, Tom. The number's 0800 332 2283. Okay, coming up, we're going to be just changing tack a little. We're going to be talking how best and how does a nation mark Anzac Day. I think, the most sacred day of the year for New Zealanders. All right, it's 8:30, news time.
News on the platform.
In this update, employers have more choice with competition for work heating up. Recruitment companies are warning of thousands joining the unemployment queue and more people signing up for job seeker benefits. The latest Seek data shows job ads falling by 0.4% in March. Talent ID Recruitment's Holly Oppers says there's been a change of tide.
We're seeing a lot more skilled candidates coming through, which means that there's movement in the market, which is not a bad thing.
A homicide investigation's been launched after the death of a Hawera man last night. Detective Senior Sergeant Debbie Gower says police attended a disorder incident at a Gladstone Street property after 10 last night, where a man died after sustaining serious head injuries. Oranga Tamariki has called in the consultants to help the agency cut jobs in its bid to save costs. The Children's Ministry, which needs to find 6.5% cost savings, has been looking at cutting 447 net roles as it tries to go back to its core purpose. Azaria Howell has the exclusive details.
Oranga Tamariki has confirmed it's working with 2 consultancy agencies on its change proposal with advice not available internally. The news comes after agencies were told to cut back dependency on contractors and consultants. Public Service Association National Secretary Kerry Davies fears it's adding expenses.
Vandals have waged war on a small Southland town's public toilets, causing more than $10,000 in damages. Local Democracy reports Lumsden's facilities have been targeted at least 5 times since October. That's news.
Sport on the platform.
In sport, Warriors coach Andrew Webster admits he's worried about the effect a niggly Achilles injury is having on Sean Johnson. The veteran halfback hasn't been training with the team, but is expected to feature again in the Anzac Day clash with the Gold Coast Titans. Webster says Johnson's left Achilles is very sore and he can't get his reps in. Crusaders boss Colin Mansbridge has taken aim at some pundits, suggesting the perennial Super Rugby winners part ways with Rob Penny. The Crusaders are last on the competition ladder with 1 win from 8. Penny took over as Crusaders coach from Scott Robertson. Mansbridge says while he can understand a mood of fans looking for a scapegoat, he can't accept that position being taken by an expert. Scotty Scheffler has added the tartan jacket of the RBC heritage to his second green jacket a week ago at the Masters. That's sport. I'm Jodie Gill.
This idea of purity and you're always politically woke and all that stuff, you should get over that quickly. The world is messy.
What you have to say counts on the platform.
All right, you are on the platform. Sean Plunket here. Look, a couple of things. Get our next guest up. A couple of things I just want to remind you of. Really good piece published this morning, I think it was. And it's I didn't commission this. I got a call from a good old mate of mine, Scott Lee from Tairua. And Scott said, I've written a piece about my dad for Anzac Day. I'd love you to publish it. And I read it and I said, of course I will, mate. It's a good piece. It's called The Late Arrivals Case. And it's a story about Scott's dad, who was a fighter pilot in World War II and got incarcerated and made a prisoner of war, but escaped and got back to his own people and was awarded the Late Arrivals Club medal. It's a boot with some wings on it. It's a lovely story. And not because of it's an unusual story. There are so many of these stories of service and sacrifice, and I know we think primarily of World War I, no one left from there. World War II, very rare to have World War II veterans now, but anyone who has served and been prepared to or made the ultimate sacrifice for New Zealand. Look, Anzac Day could be many things to many people. I think for various reasons, and I do realise I see this from my own cultural perspective and through my heritage, I think Anzac Day is the most sacred day of the New Zealand calendar, bar none. And you do not have to be a white Anglo-Saxon post-colonial to appreciate what Anzac Day is about camaraderie, about sacrifice, and those things, those ideals transcend ethnicity, almost transcend nationhood. So I think it's an important day. It is Thursday this week. How do we mark it? How do we respect who is it for? I think really an important interview. So we're joined by Mark Compain. He's the RSA Remembrance Committee Chair, and he joins us on the line now. Mark, thank you for joining us. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Sean. Thank you for having me.
All right, Mark, it is, I think, the most important day in the New Zealand calendar and the most important holiday. How do we, in general, mark Anzac Day? What's a good way to approach Anzac Day if we wish to commemorate it?
All right. Right. As you mentioned before, there's a few threads to that, so I'll try and keep my answer coherent because there are a number of issues to weave into that tapestry. But I think first and foremost, it's a time to just stop and pause and remember those who have served and sacrificed in the cause of something bigger for themselves. And what we hope, and certainly in my role as a professional soldier and where I served overseas, we hope that it is for the right reasons and to ultimately to protect those who cannot protect themselves. So in one sense, it is fundamental to remember those who have served, those who lost their lives, those who lost their health, both physically and or psychologically, and the impact on their families as they came home with those wounds and illnesses, and how that trauma and stress has echoed through our generations. To right through to, well, what does it mean to be a New Zealander? What responsibilities do we have as a citizen when we consider the price paid for those freedoms that we enjoy today? So I think that to me is really key. Some form of remembrance, but again, beyond Anzac Day, we have heard stories and it's been described by those who have been before us, and certainly from my generation. What we would like to see is people remembering on a day-to-day basis what the cost has been and what that means to go about our business as citizens on a daily basis.
Yeah.
For supporting our fellow citizens. Yeah.
Is there a danger, and gosh, you look at, honestly, the state of the world at the moment and what people are prepared to pick up a flag and wave and protest for. Is there a danger this year that Anzac Day becomes politicised yet again with people, I don't know, shouting from the river to the sea and thinking it's all about contemporary politics and what the government's doing wrong and what they don't like about the world?
Yeah, I think that we have a tradition in New Zealand to keep Anzac sacrosanct in the sense that this is about remembering those who served.
Yeah.
And when I say served, I'm talking about those men and women who are serving, have served and never got a chance to go overseas. They signed the dotted line, they stood ready, and many of them lost their health regardless.
Yeah.
Because of the demands of military service. So, our hope and our wish is that we leave Anzac Day to remember those who served and what it means to be a citizen. Many of us would defend. That's what we did, right?
Yeah.
We defend the rights of those to have their own way of thinking and to express that in an appropriate, safe way. But we certainly wouldn't want to see Anzac Day politicised.
Yeah. Mark, do you think that Anzac Day is, or the idea of it, is accessible to all New Zealanders? And I said in my intro, look, I go back, one of my mother's uncles landed at Gallipoli on day 2. Served from the first day of the First World War to the end of it, demobbed, huge psychological problems, riddled with venereal disease. But he served. And I found, later in life, I found a whole lot of letters and postcards from him. And it was really a tragic story. And it kind of got me closer to what Anzac might have been about. I've never served. There are a whole lot of people now in New Zealand who come from different countries, different parts of the world. They come here as immigrants. Do you think they get it? And do you think the message of Anzac is universal? Or is it only for some New Zealanders?
No, I think I believe, and then certainly this is what the Remembrance Committee and the RSA strategy is being developed around, is making sure that there is a connection for all peoples in New Zealand to its military heritage and the men and women and the families of our armed forces. And it's interesting when you think about different people coming here from different countries. Many of those people are from countries where our defence forces served on the land, in the sea, and the air.
Yeah.
And so for many of them, the military service is probably closer to their heart because they have come here to escape war and conflict and the detritus of that, and so may because they have first-hand experience, have a closer relationship to Anzac. As our wars and conflicts have been fought by smaller and smaller parts of our population, as opposed to expeditionary forces of citizen soldiers to small professional forces, our first-hand experience is not universal. And so in our strategy, we are looking at ways to actually address that and make sure that Anzac is universal, and that despite the tyranny of distance, there is an identification with that service, and goes beyond the world wars, and it goes beyond Vietnam. Many of my generation who have served in Bosnia, Timor, Afghanistan, and the seas and airs around the Middle East,
we've got people serving now on active duty as part of that coalition in the Mid-East.
Yeah.
So it's so secret we can't say what they're doing. But there are New Zealanders deployed all over the world right now and on that Anzac Day.
Yeah, and that's not in the narrative, the common narrative.
Yeah.
We have female veterans who I served with overseas who have been told on Anzac Day parades, you're wearing those medals on the wrong side. They belong to, you should be wearing them on, and it's like, so, it is not universal in the sense that people have not, I guess, made the link between more recent service and the active military service and what it means for Anzac. Because before you have forces to deploy, necessarily you must have highly trained forces in the ready. So, I think there's a bit of work to do to shift that narrative, while we do not absolutely want to forget the past. And I had 4 relatives at Gallipoli with the Mounted Rifles.
Wow.
I've walked the battlefields of Gallipoli and the Western Front in France of my own volition to pay homage. But we need to see a growing understanding. And here's the thing, Sean. This isn't about doing it because it makes us feel good. We already know that the social and economic cost and health cost to New Zealand of not addressing physical and psychological wounds in particular cost this country more and more, has cost the country, a great deal.
Yeah.
And so what we need is for my generation and others to get that sense of validation and acknowledgement by the nation, and to then enter into help earlier. We want to create earlier help-seeking behaviours through remembrance. So the National War Memorial, for example, ends at Vietnam. There's nowhere for me to go.
I wasn't aware.
There's a few things I think that we need to move with Anzac Day to keep it contemporary without losing the past.
Yeah. Mark, what would your message be to those who might decide to use Anzac Day as a day of protest or to disrupt the ceremonies? What would your message be to them?
I would say, please don't. I mean, we're not saying that you have no right to protest or air your grievances safely and appropriately, but please don't do it on this day. This is a day for us to remember whatever the rights and wrongs were of the very human and tragic cost, not only to those who died, but to the greater majority of those who returned broken in health and had to go about their business with very little support, really. And the wives and the husbands now who are those unpaid caregivers. Just have a mind to them. They are dealing with tragedy. They are dealing with trauma in their own homes silently. Let's just leave the day for that.
All right. Look, the other thing is if people want to take part, and I'm speaking particularly to people who might not have been born in New Zealand or whose parents weren't born in New Zealand, Where do you go to find out how you can be part of it, how you can be part of the commemoration on Anzac Day? What's the best place to get info on that?
Okay, so on the RSA National Office webpage, there is a Find an RSA and Find an Anzac Service facility there. But also, if you contact your local RSA or your local council, will usually advertise on their media means what the local commemorative services are. But you know what? If going to a parade is not your thing, go to an old folks home or rest home or a retirement village and ask to drop off some Anzac biscuits to any veterans or surviving spouses.
Wow, that's a nice
Just a simple,
yeah.
You know, just a simple act of acknowledgement, you know.
Yeah.
Is just as powerful.
Yeah. Mark, as I said, I think it's the most important day in the New Zealand calendar. And I thank you for your service, and I trust it's all going to go off without any unpleasantness.
Yeah, I hope so too, Sean. Yeah.
Good on you, mate. Thank you very much. Mark Compain, RSA Remembrance Committee Chairman. So, yeah, John Minto and the rest of you whack jobs, not a day for you to be chanting from the river to the sea and playing Rent a Mob. There you go. Bugger off. Let's take a break. It's 8:46.
Sometimes the grass is greener, but with Lawnmaster the grass is just better. And with Lawnmaster's lithium battery range, it's even easier too. Share one battery between your lawnmower, hedge trimmer, chainsaw, blower and line trimmer. Quiet, easy to use, lightweight and zero emissions. One battery to master your garden with Lawnmaster, your 100% New Zealand owned outdoor power specialist. Go to lawnmaster.co.nz to find your local Lawnmaster dealer. Another Steelfort brand.
You're on the road to financial freedom. How do you make sure you still get there, even if the wheels fall off? I'm Samuel Reese Thomas, Director and Insurance Advisor at Harness Financial. We are independent, expert advisors on making sure you and your loved ones are going to be okay financially, even when things go wrong. From medical insurance and non-pharmac drug cover to income protection, life insurance, or cover for your employees, our aim is to make sure your hard work is protected from unnecessary risk. Book a complimentary insurance consultation with us today. Call me directly on 027 3344 812 or visit www.harnessfinancial.co.nz.
Harness Financial is a licensed financial advice provider able to provide personalised insurance and investment advice. For important information, visit harnessfinancial.co.nz.
That's the Easy Build way.
Unlock the value of your land with Easy Build's quality, affordable modular homes. Designed and built by Kiwis for Kiwis, our homes can be ready to move into in as little as 12 weeks on site. We'll build it for you, or you can assemble the flat pack yourself. Whether you want a second home on your existing property, a rental, or it's time to downsize, our warm, energy-efficient homes are the smart choice for your investment. For details, head to easybuild.co.nz.
That's the Easy Build way.
Longridge Country Estate Retirement Village in the central, vibrant town of Paeroa offers quality 2 and 3 bedroom villas and a relaxed country town lifestyle that needs to be seen to be appreciated. Come and see it for yourself. They're open daily from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Inquire about their special offers available now. Call Longridge today to find out more on 0800 928 928. That's 0800 928 928.
Plunket Unchained on the platform.
We're all go here at the platform. We really are. Okay, let's just concentrate on Anzac for the next 10 minutes or so, up to the news at 9 o'clock. What would your message be? Text or ring in on 0800 33 2283. What would your message be to Rent a Mob if they choose to protest and disrupt Anzac Day ceremonies? To my mind, it is as offensive as protesting in a church during a Catholic Mass or communion, or disrupting and protesting in a mosque during prayers. In fact, it's probably worse in a New Zealand context. What is your message to those who would rent a mob protest on Anzac Day at Anzac Day events? Hey, Sally, how are you?
I'm good this morning, Sean. You've just thrown me for a loop with what you're wanting to talk about. I dare them to come people will send them away.
I don't want violence. That's not what Anzac Day is about. But, geez, as I
They will
say,
send
to
them
me
away
it
with
is
their
like
voice.
sacrilege at a church service.
Absolutely. But as far as immigrants and Anzac Day, you still there, Sean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I came here in 1990, and I was amazed to see the number of immigrants at the service compared to the number of Kiwis. But that changed over the years, and more Kiwis started to come, and the immigrants still came more and more every year, and I've seen it grow.
Well, we're all Kiwis, you know?
Yeah.
Even you.
Yeah, I feel like one.
All right, so your message is don't protest. Stay away.
Don't stay away.
Yeah.
And let these people commemorate
Yeah.
in peace.
Yeah, I hear you, and I thank you, Sally. Shawnee, any protesters on the 25th should bugger off, says Joanna. Pretty clear. Hey, Renter Mob, just tell us you're Nazis. We know you are. Just admit it, says Paul. Sean, now, we've heard this rumour too, Chris. Can anyone confirm this? I'll crowdsource this story. Sean, I hear a rumour the Auckland War Memorial is not lighting the building in red this year in honour of Anzac Day. Have you heard this? And if so, what are your thoughts? Well, let's get the facts before we get into my feels, shall we, Chris? Does anyone know anything about that, about whether or not they're lighting the Auckland War Memorial red? They are pretty woke, the Auckland War Memorial. They banned the Harry Potter exhibition, remember? Sean, Anzac, they celebrate the men and women who used violence to prevent domination by violence. I think quite an adequate response. Oh, Kevin, ring in, you bonehead. Sean, tell him to try that in a small town. Cheers, Tex. Protesting on Anzac Day will be likened to crapping on the memory of men and women who fought and lost their lives fighting for the very freedoms they enjoy today, so don't. Show respect. Hey, Renter Mob. I've read that one. The Anzac protesters should be free to protest as long as they're speaking Japanese. Very, very droll, that, Sam. Hey, Gail, how are you?
I'm good, Sean. I will try to keep my emotions intact on this one. But if anyone does decide to do a protest on Anzac Day, do it at your own peril and lose support for anything that you are trying to put forward.
Yeah, I don't think it's a day we should mess with. Mind you, Gail, we're
I
probably
agree.
of an
I
age.
agree.
I'm probably older than you. But in the 60s, 70s, right, it was cool. Hippies would turn up at Anzac Day, you know, and Peace Man and smoke dope, and it was a thing. It was a very trendy thing to be a peacenik and protest Anzac Day. I might have felt like that when I was a bit younger, but then I realised that's not what Anzac Day isn't about the glorification of war. It's about the tragedy of humanity.
I totally agree with you.
You know?
Totally agree with you. I mean, I agree. I think it is the most sacred day in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, if I were to see a protest, I would just see them like the Stop Oil idiots.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I would see them.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I sort of said, if they do that, then they do it at their own peril because they will just lose any kind of support
For anything.
they're looking for.
Yeah. Well said, Gail. And actually, I think that's a really good message to get out there. If you or your group, John Minto, because you know he's going to, if you choose to protest on Anzac Day, you just blow, well, he hasn't got any credibility anyway, Gail, but you blow all your credibility. Good on you, Gail. Yeah. I thank you for your call. Sean, as distasteful as it is, it's democracy. Isn't that what the fighting was for? No, John, I think you'll find if you read any military history, when it comes down to it, on the front line of a conflict, people are fighting literally for the person on either side of them in the expectation that the person on either side of them are fighting for the same thing. And there are no atheists in foxholes, as they say. I have not, and I will not, touch wood, ever be required to put my life on the line for conflict to protect my nation or protect anything or to protect my own arse. I know a few people who have, and I have some relations and some forebears who did, and I honour the fact that they were prepared to do that. And I give thanks on Anzac Day that I have not been required to do that. And I give thanks that my son has not been required to do that in his lifetime and probably won't. And part of the reason that he hasn't is because of the sacrifice or the being prepared to sacrifice of others. Anzac Day also has significance for this country in terms of defining its separation from and the transition from being a colony to being an independent nation after the incompetence of the British leadership at Anzac, at the Gallipoli campaign, and the forging of a special bond of brothership and a filial bond with Australia. So it is a very significant day, and I say the most significant, important day in our calendar, the most holy day in our calendar, and I'm not a religious person. Pepper, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Sean. How are you, brother, right?
Good. How can I help?
Sean, there's two sides to every story, as you know, and,
sometimes more than two, Pepper.
Yes, but it doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. But the bottom line is, here's me, right? I had great uncles who fought at Gallipoli. I had my father who served fighting against Rommel's troops in North Africa.
Yeah.
Now, within 10 years after his return from Africa, he shot himself in the head, Christmas Day 1945, just before I was born.
Gee, and that's your dad are you talking about?
Yes.
Jeez, Pepper.
Now, so remembering those who served, okay, and the price paid for our freedoms every day.
Yeah.
Are you freaking kidding me? Take a look at the world today, Sean. And the winners, supposedly. That's probably why I'm like I am. I came to the same conclusion as my father, where society was headed a long time ago. We protect our engineer slave masters at our peril, Sean. Take a look at the judicial system around the Five Eye countries today. Don't be a sheep. Seek freaking higher. That's all I can say.
You going to protest on Anzac Day, Pepper?
I've been down there a few times. I used to wear my German helmet and upset a few people. But I'm a bit past it, Sean, because it doesn't really achieve anything. Protests don't achieve anything. But I'm just saying that these things lay a lot deeper than what most people understand. And, I tend to agree with the famous Austrian painter and all of what he was trying to do for his country.
Yeah, and you lost me there, Peter. You lost me there, Pepper. If you agree with Adolf Hitler, you lost me there. You don't get a lot of time. Sean, Pepper wants everyone speaking German. Freedom was on the line in World War II. It maybe said it to upset me, but you don't get... and this week, you don't get a run on that on the platform, Pepper. Sean, you raised a good point about the protesters. I swear to God, if the Palestine nutters use Anzac Day to kick off and cause a disruption, then I'll be really pissed and I'll lose any sympathy I have for them. Sean, we went to Arras in France earlier this year and went to the battlefields of the Somme. Hundreds of unknown graves. Those stupid protesters should go and see how many face their lives. Very sobering, says Ray. Sean, the Palatine protesters could protest outside Baby Rue's murder scene. Perhaps a 24/7 vigil. Sort out our own problems before we look elsewhere. Well said, Alex. And isn't it funny how all these issues this morning come together as how we think of ourselves, what is important to us, how we define ourselves. Sean, good comments from Mark. I also think that the women who've become widows and children who've lost fathers also need the consideration of having their memories not disrupted by protests on Anzac Day. That is from Hugh in Hokitika. Coming up, we've got Anne DeLefter on the property market. I want to continue what has been a really interesting discussion and serious discussion this morning. During the break, you could read the Late Arrivals Club column in the opinions section of the platform website and app. Right now, it is 9 o'clock. That's Newsbar.
News on the platform.
In this update, the reinstatement of the 3 strikes laws is highlighting the challenging balance between safety and consequences of crimes. The government is looking to re-establish laws allowing for violent and sexual criminals committing a third offence to get mandatory prison sentences. It will only apply to sentences above 24 months and give judges more discretion. Criminal defence lawyer John Munro says there'll always be tension between communities wanting safety and doing the right thing while punishing people properly.
But we've got to try and find new ways to do it rather than just going back to the old stuff about getting tough on crime.
Christopher Luxon is defending spending millions on clean energy in Asia while cutting costs and government jobs in New Zealand. The government has committed $41 million towards an Asian Development Bank Clean Energy Transition Initiative. Luxon says the funding demonstrates New Zealand's commitment to help reduce global carbon emissions. He says the money comes out of an existing budget for projects like this.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade have what's called an overseas development budget. It's typically focused on the Pacific Islands and Southeast Asia. That's where this money's come from.
A person is missing following a water incident near Waimate last night. Police were notified that a person was missing from a boat on the Waitaki River. Coast Guard and police are conducting searches. An American comedian is defending his decision to kick a mother with a crying baby out of his Melbourne comedy show. Flight of the Conchord star, Arj Barker, asked the mother to leave his Melbourne show on Saturday, claiming her baby was disrupting his performance. Australia correspondent Donna DeMeo says Barker feels bad for any upset involved, but says he was thinking of the hundreds of other ticket holders hoping to hear his show.
He said it's a 15-plus show, and he made the decision on behalf of the 700 others who were being distracted.
That's news.
Sport on the platform.
In sport, Warriors coach Andrew Webster is open to giving Sean Johnson a week off from the NRL to help manage his ongoing Achilles injury. The 33-year-old halfback has barely trained for 2 weeks, but is still expected to front against the Gold Coast Titans on Anzac Day. Webster says he's got to be careful how he goes about it, though, and make sure it's not perceived as a slight against the opposition. An emotional plea from the Crusaders as they return home at one of their lowest ebbs in Super Rugby history. They've recorded just the one win over the Chiefs so far this season to sit bottom of the competition table. The Crusaders host the Rebels on Friday night. CEO Colin Mansbridge is asking his fans to stick with their side. Scotty Scheffler's clinched a 4th victory in 5 starts, backing up his Masters victory with the tartan jacket at the PGA Tour's RBC Heritage in South Carolina. That's sport. I'm Jodie Gill.
It's time for climate change on the platform. The weather, brought to you by kiwifertiliser.co.nz. Custom-made biological fertiliser that feeds you. Rear, I think, and we'll check whether or not we're on. We've just had what I would call catastrophic system failure. Everything appears to have locked up on the computers. Ben is on the phone. That's a very strange time for that to happen, bang at 9 o'clock. I wonder what the issue is. Look, it looks like. So we got no phone lines, Ben? Okay, it's just the hotkeys have gone. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you can help me out. We're going to pull Anne up. We're going to have a talk to Anne DeLefter. What an interesting morning. And I'm kind of... I do not want to be I don't want to over-egg Anzac Day, but I think it is incredibly important. Anzac Day and what happens on Anzac Day. And I would hate to see Anzac Day marred by protest. This is not about what you think about Palestine or trans rainbow frog rights. This is a day to remember people like my great uncle Neil, who served every day of World War I. Enlisted A1, discharged D5, broken man. Served in Gallipoli, served in EPA, wounded, every disease known to man, and all his other mates from Collingwood. And you go to a place like Takaka, our easy build weather location. You go to Takaka, go to Collingwood, you go to any small town in New Zealand, and you wonder why it's got a little memorial with all these names on it. We lost more people in World War One. Proportionately, the only other country that lost a greater proportion of its young men was France, where World War One was fought. Much of World War One was fought. So I do not think, and then we go on to all the other conflicts, World War II, Malay, Korea, East Timor, Bosnia-Herzegovina, the people who have served all over the world for New Zealand. It is their day. It is our day to remember them and mark either their sacrifice or their willingness to make the ultimate sacrifice. For what? That doesn't matter, actually. And certainly, John Minto and the rest of you renter mobs, what you think on Anzac Day doesn't matter. Our most sacred day, leave it alone. Leave it alone. All right, are we back in business, Betty, or we've still got the hotkeys issue? All right, in that case, we're going to go and we're going to say a very good morning again, as we do every week, to Anne DeLefter from Ray White in Parnell. We got you there, Anne?
Yep.
We have, all right. Good morning. Nice to talk. Hey, what are you doing for Anzac Day?
I was going to go to the Dawn.
Good on you. Good on you.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to do.
Very important day.
Good on you. Hey, what is the property of the week?
Sean, it's the same as last week. Last week we talked about...
If it's worth being property of the week once, it's worth being property of the week twice, Anne.
Yes, it is. And it's 49 McFarlane Street. I'll just do a really brief recap. This was a 1990s plaster home with water tightness issues. And after the first week and a half of marketing, the market feedback was first-time buyers were shying away from the work required.
Right. Okay,
So
you did mention that last week. There was a bit of a mish.
Yeah, I mean it's entirely livable. It's rented out, and I thought it was a great opportunity, but I can see why. So what we as agents do is reposition a property once we get the feedback from the market, and so we're repositioning it towards developers or land investors. And at this stage, after the market feedback, the vendor's highly motivated. Last week we said around 900,000 plus buyers should inquire. That's based on market feedback. And we re-advertised it as section for sale, make me an offer.
So that's buy and bowl, is it?
It's a buy and bowl, and what buyers should consider is what can they do if they want to offer, what can they do to make this more attractive? Can they say, okay, leave it standing, or, can they, just what can they do in terms of the additional clauses in the offer that make it
right. It's a freehold site, right?
Absolutely freehold. That's really good. And the other urban zone, which is better than mixed suburban for making money, or a little more high rise, just a little bit more intensification for the rebuild.
Okay, all right. Look, let's talk about some other things. And I think it's really good, actually, and I love your honesty about this. Okay, we put it on the market, and we probably didn't pitch it right, because your job is to sell the house for the client. So you've got to give a client feedback on how the process is going, right? And you've got to be prepared to pivot if you need to.
That's right, and it's actually crucial to pivot. It's not even that we get a campaign wrong, it's just that we occasionally need to reposition it or emphasise slightly different points. You'd be amazed, just sometimes tweaking a headline or changing the order of the photographs puts a different lead photograph in front of the viewers on the property portals. So it starts to look like a new property, and if we fiddle around and change, those are the things that keep the inquiry stream coming. So so look, client updates are hugely important, and there's a really neat trust relationship between an agent and the client. You really got to like the person that you're working with.
Yeah, that always helps, doesn't it?
As an agent.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes the feedback isn't ideal,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, some
quite
other
often
things, databases and confidentiality when dealing with clients and offers and the like.
Okay, so quite often vendors think that we have a massive database of people, of potential buyers that we can reach out to. That's true, we can reach out to them, but quite often they're not high quality leads because people are very changeable. They're sort of in and then they've moved on. And so if they're residue contact in your database, they're not necessarily going to be the buyer for the property. Mostly we find that the buyer comes from the advertising.
Okay, and people who are looking will find.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. All right,
Yep.
so let's just remind again, 14A McFarlane Street, Remuera. It's a buy and bowl or a fixer-upper, but it's zoned urban zone, mixed urban zone zoning, better than mixed suburban zone, freehold site, elevated views of the golf course, worth a look. How do people get you, Anne?
022 108 7577.
Good luck with it. Look forward to talking to you next week, Anne. Have a good Anzac Day.
You too. Bye.
Cheers. That is Anne Delefter from Ray White in Parnell. Property of the week, 14A McFarlane Street, Remuera. Get online, check it out with Anne. Are we back in business yet? We are. Let's go to an ad break. Oh, you need to do some stuff first. We're not quite back in business. We got a call from Ash. Sean, here's what I'd say to anyone who wanted to protest on Anzac Day. I dare you to protest outside the Avondale RSA. We don't want to start World War III here. Ash, welcome.
Good morning, Sean. Lovely topic. I think we've spoken about this one in the past. But
yeah.
I'm the first generation in 4 generations that hasn't had to serve or been compelled to serve in some way.
Bloody good job.
Still a very proud member of the RSA on my late father's behalf, and on my grandfather's behalf, and on my great-grandfather's behalf. And actually, the interesting thing about this year, I guess, is where my grandfather actually served.
Yeah.
And a little backwater next to the Mediterranean Sea called Palestine.
Oh.
And yeah, the scrap that he was involved in, the most well known, I guess, was the one that got the Australian light horse into a little town by the name of Beersheba.
Oh, the great charge, the last great cavalry charge, mounted horse cavalry charge of armed conflict. Good Lord.
That's the one. And the reason, actually, there is an interesting reason behind this, and everyone's welcome to pull this apart if they want to. The reason the Australians actually got into Beersheba is because the Kiwis got there first. And the intriguing thing about that, it's the Wellington light horse, and the Wellington mounted infantry, and when they got to Egypt, their sort of mustering point, all their horses basically keeled over and dropped dead, whereas the Australian horses were used to dry conditions and they were fine. So the Kiwis were sent out with a couple of quid to go and buy camels, which they then mounted up with saddles and strapped machine guns to the side of, and they went overnight, all the way through the nights, to get to Beersheba ahead of the Australians, and sat there and basically kept the machine guns hosing down on the German position. The Turkish, Ottoman, German positions to keep everyone's heads down, while the Australian light horse did an 11-kilometre charge to get into the town before they blew up all the wells in the town. So it was a remarkable little story there. But
and your grandfather, was it? Your grandfather served there?
Yeah, my grandfather, yeah.
Good on him.
Yeah, he was born in 1897, and Dad followed up with service in the Navy through the late 50s into the 60s, and he was on Royalist and various other frigates and so forth in Malaya, the Malaya conflict. And that wasn't much of a nice fight either. That was a pretty dirty sort of a scrap.
Yeah, it was.
And the great-grandfather, he was in the Nelson, probably the Nelson mounted rifle.
He was in service With my mum's uncle, Uncle Neil. Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, my great-grandfather apparently was one of the earlier casualties of the First World War.
Yeah.
When New Zealand was sent off to Samoa to take the German piece of Samoa.
We're not meant to talk about that. That's slightly embarrassing, the New Zealand Empire.
It's an intriguing one, that one. Yeah, he got kicked by his own horse, which I guess is equally embarrassing. And wound up getting sent home with all of his ribs busted. But yeah, remarkable how these little stories come back to little old New Zealand and the involvement in Palestine. I never got much out of my grandfather about the First World War. He was very, very quiet about it. And I think the three takeaways from it were, one, never trust a camel. They're horrible bloody things. They don't even taste very good. And they can spit about 5 pounds of fluid about 30 yards. So they're just evil things. The second thing he said is the Palestinians weren't much cop either. They were basically a little coastal tribal group at that point, and they weren't very nice people to try and deal with. The Egyptians were considerably better at it.
Yeah, I spent some time at a commemoration in El Alamein, and the one thing that from anyone from any side of the conflict said, I've got no time for Arabs.
Yeah, it's an intriguing one. There was a lot of double dealing. But the final thing, this is probably the most interesting thing to take away from it. He said, we spent more time fighting against Lawrence of Arabia than with him. Now work that one out. So the British were prepared to sacrifice Kiwis against Lawrence of Arabia so he could keep the Bedouins on side.
Wow.
And Aussies.
Ash, that is all good stuff. And I take it, therefore, you are not very keen on people who might protest on Anzac Day.
Oh, extremely not keen. And there's been some stuff that's happened around our little local area with people giving out white feathers on Anzac Day, and that's gone down like a bucket of cold sick.
Yeah.
I suggest, one, lest they forget, and two, lest they try.
Yep. I hear you,
It would go down very badly in rural New Zealand, okay?
I thank you for your call, mate. Have a good day.
Nice one, mate.
Cheers.
Take care. Yes.
And I will, for the next couple of days, today, tomorrow, any talk, any discussion you want to have about service in your family, remembrance of people you know who served, observations about New Zealand service in any of the conflicts we've been involved in. There have been many of them. Please do ring in and share with us. And I once again recommend you go to the opinions section of the platform website and app. Don't forget to download the app. Lovely story there from my mate Scotty Lee about his dad, who was a fighter pilot over Malta in World War II, and his story of getting his little medal for the Late Arrivals Club. It's never too late to come back. And I'll be thinking of Scotty and Scotty's dad today, of this Anzac Day, as I think of my mum's Uncle Neil, and other members and connections I know have been involved. My grandfather went and was an aircraft mechanic in Bougainville. He was a communist. He didn't sign up, I don't think, until the day Hitler invaded Russia. He wasn't really interested in World War II before that because he thought it was a war amongst capitalists. But he went off and served in the end. My grandfather, my mother's father, didn't serve. He had tuberculosis and was unfit for military duty. Really, something to think of. And as I said, I think just the most sacred day we've got in New Zealand. If we had a break this half hour, we haven't. We better have one. Well, joining us now to have a chat, our good friends at Steelfort, is John McAviney. What are people buying at the field days? What are your products that are moving well there?
Probably our biggest performing mower is the Fine Cut 725. You know, that body and that mower is particularly well performing. It's got the New Zealand consumer tick on it.
You want a good, reliable mower to do the average section, you go the Fine Cut 725.
You know, we've mucked around with the design on it over the years and just fine-tuned it, and I would suggest now it's probably the best performing.
Now, you've got a bit of a credit card debt deal going on?
Yeah, the GEM visa. It's an 18-month interest-free minimum spend of $500, and that's available through all the outlets that we have. So take advantage of it.
That is John McAviney from steelfoot.co.nz. Hundreds of distributors around the country where you can get their gear, and it's everything. Ride-on mowers, push mowers, garden equipment, contractors equipment, just a huge range of stuff.
Mate, have you bought a rapid dry towel for your car yet?
He's still going on about those things. Bro, it's just a towel.
A rapid dry towel is not just a towel. It is the towel. The thirstiest towel on earth. This sucker will dry off a whole average-sized car perfectly from start to finish in under 3 minutes with no wringing out. This is God's towel.
Rapid Dry Towels now available at Briscoe's nationwide or rapiddrytowels.com to buy online or find your nearest stockist.
My name is Martin Devlin.
And I'm Tony Kemp.
And we're talking rugby league, mate.
Mate, it's back, and it's back and better than it's ever been before because the old team's back, Marty. People don't know that. Me and you, that's how it got started. No holds barred.
No punches.
You're going to get it right between the eyes.
PR stuff.
That's right. If you want to hear it live, tune in Mondays 3 till 4 because Marty Devlin's back with Tony Kemp.
The Rugby League Hour, brought to you by Microbio Solutions Limited. Visit microbio.co.nz.
Longridge Country Estate Retirement Village in the central vibrant town of Paeroa offers quality 2 and 3 bedroom villas and a relaxed country town lifestyle that needs to be seen to be appreciated. Come and see it for yourself. We're open daily from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Inquire about our special offers available now. Call Longridge today to find out more on 0800 928 928. That's 0800 928 928.
Plunket Unchained on the platform.
This text. Hi, Sean. I'm a former New Zealand soldier, then security contractor, spending 2003-2007 in Iraq. More than 20 years later, and I'm still affected by PTSD. My father served, also had PTSD. Maybe it's the price of fighting for freedom. Cheers, Daryl, and happy Passover. Thank you, Daryl. Maybe that is the price. And Daryl, I don't... The other thing I think you shouldn't do with a soldier or a service personnel is hold them responsible for the reasons they go into combat or they go into conflict or the reasons they serve. They serve. And other stuff is above their pay grade. And whether or not a war's moral or right or makes geopolitical sense is not their concern or responsibility. And it is individuals that we remember and we pay our respects to on Anzac Day. Sean, Anzac Day is a day of remembrance. My dad fought in World War II, never spoke about it much like many others did. It's time to remember them. That's why it is such a special day, and it must not be sullied by partisan political protest, though I'm sure someone's going to give it a go. Rich, g'day.
Morning, Sean. How are we today?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, I feel shit, man. I'm sorry for the coarse language, but, 6 months and...
Oh, this is Baby Roo, yeah.
Baby Roo. Yeah, I'm a father with a 3-year-old daughter, and it's just like when you talk about this morning that they've scaled back the investigation, it's just like, where are we coming? Where are we going in this country? It's like, I'm lost for words, man. It's just, it really hits me hard because, that poor little boy and with the way his life ended, and those scums just can't be bothered coming forward.
Well, wouldn't you have respect for Chris Luxon if he stood up and said, forget my 100-day plan, my first quarter or my second quarter plan, we're going to get justice for Baby Roo. There's a commitment from this government. Wouldn't that mean a hell of a lot more?
It would. But the thing is, Sean, is that I know you say that, I think you said it was in the Post this morning or something, but...
Whole front page, good on them. Well, I've got to say good on them in this instance.
What about the other media outlets? Like, it just seems to be like it'll be the next time a baby dies, we'll talk about it for a day and then we'll move on. It's like, okay, so we won't do anything about it. It seems that I don't get that, Sean. It's just like at some point we've got to start thinking about how are we going to stop preventing this from happening. And people that are just having babies just for the sake of it. It's just like, and people like the previous government, like Marama Davidson and all those, they never said anything. They never stood up.
No.
And they
Now, they're not saying anything now. They're amazed by their absence. They're quite happy to put on a tea towel around their head and wave a Palestinian flag and say, oh, the babies are dying. They do nothing about babies dying here.
Yeah. I don't care what happens overseas. Why don't we start fixing our mess up in this country first? I know that it's sad what's going on overseas, but it's just like, well, hang on a minute. We've got our own issues. We've got
Charity does.
dying,
There's an old saying, Rich,
killed.
charity begins at home. And I think it's true, mate.
Yeah.
Hey, I thank you for your call. And I thank you for your humanity, Rich, because you've rung a couple of times on this. And I know that you're genuinely upset, as am I, as all decent New Zealanders should be.
It's just disgusting, Sean. Like, as I said to you in my text earlier, so the police were running around trying to find someone who painted over a rainbow crossing. It's like, what about when it comes to Baby Roo? I just kind of, I'll leave it at that, Sean.
I get you, mate. I get you. Hang in there. Sean, I'm a townie. I totally agree with the caller. Better not protest on Anzac Day. My grandfather was an engineer on the Queen Mary. Great stories about running at full speed, zigzagging to avoid subs. Hitler had an iron cross for any sub-captain who got her or her sister ship, Queen Elizabeth. They were the grey ghost, painted grey during the war. That's from Nige. Interesting. Let's not forget the Maori Pioneer Battalion. And the Maori Battalion, certainly a separate entity who wanted to serve alongside their Pākehā compatriots, but with their own autonomy, highly degraded, who were not treated equally on their return. Well, the Maori Battalion, one of the finest fighting forces of World War II. No doubt about it. Sean, my father was one of 3 Tongans who served in the 28th Maori Battalion. I will be celebrating Anzac Day in Nuku'alofa, Tonga this year, lest we forget. Lovely message, Gail. Thank you very much indeed. Sean, my grandfather won First British Expeditionary Force, World War I, invalided out after the Somme blind from mustard gas. Grandfather too, torpedoed twice World War II. Auntie smuggled Germans from east to West Berlin, where she met my uncle working with the army rebuilding Germany. Myself, Loughborough and Derbyshire Yeomanry Territorial Army during the First Iraq War, lest we forget. Cheers, Ian. Good on you, Ian. My great-grandfather, Sussex Yeomanry, World War I, Passchendaele, lost his brother, blown to bits, never found. Great-grandfather Edgar came back to Gisborne, to Tinoroto, and he said he'd never call himself an Englishman again after what he had witnessed on the Western Front, and never did call himself an Englishman again. He became a New Zealander after the horrors he saw on the Western Front, particularly at Passchendaele. Got busted from being a lieutenant to being a quartermaster and running mule trains behind the lines. Got mustard gassed. Did Edgar... but convinced him he wasn't a colonial, he was a pioneer. He became a New Zealander through his service in the British Army in World War I. So that's another reason Anzac Day is special to me, about my forebears and the making of this nation. Sean, Māori TV does a far better Anzac Day tribute than TVNZ, yeah, because they actually get it. They get it. Look, we'll take a break, and then, Brett, if you could hang on, we'll take a break, then I'll have a chat with you, buddy.
You're on the road to financial freedom. How do you make sure you still get there, even if the wheels fall off? I'm Samuel Rees-Thomas, Director and Insurance Advisor at Harness Financial. We are independent, expert advisors on making sure you and your loved ones are going to be okay financially, even when things go wrong. From medical insurance and non-pharmac drug cover to income protection, life insurance, or cover for your employees, our aim is to make sure your hard work is protected from unnecessary risk. Book a complimentary insurance consultation with us today. Call me directly on 027 3344 812 or visit www.harnessfinancial.co.nz.
Harness Financial is a licensed financial advice provider able to provide personalised insurance and investment advice. For important information, visit harnessfinancial.co.nz.
That's the Easy Build way. Easy Build's quality, cost-effective modular homes are the smart choice for your new home or investment property. For a limited time, lock in your new home build with Easy Build and receive up to $10,000 to spend at Freedom, so you can enjoy the freedom to style your home on us. T's and C's apply. Get started today at easybuild.co.nz and book in your free new home build consultation to start turning your new home dreams into reality. That's the Easy Build way. Output Envy's garden hoses are everything you've ever wanted. Precise water control, great flexibility with quality stainless steel fittings. Our hoses are free from nasty chemicals, kink resistant, durable and as light as a feather. Check out our award-winning soaker hose, which comes in a stylish earthy matte colour that virtually disappears into any landscape. The Output Envy range is a garden hose game changer that also looks fantastic. Make your garden truly organic. Visit outputenvy.com today and be the envy of your neighbours.
Plunket Unchained on the platform.
All right, we've had quite a morning this morning, and I think rightly we've spent a fair bit of time talking about the 6-month anniversary of the murder, the brutal beating to death of baby Ruthless Empire, shy of his 2nd birthday. And the complete inability of our system of justice and our police force to bring anyone to justice in the following 6 months. And you can have all the 3 strikes policies you like, but if you can't catch baby killers, it's not much of a police system or a justice system. And looking ahead to Thursday, which is, of course, Anzac Day, we've begun a discussion, and I want to continue this tomorrow, about Anzac Day, what it means, your memories of those who you will remember from your family or connections on Anzac Day. And maybe we can send a strong message to those idiots who would seek to use Anzac Day as a day of protest. As I said, I think the most important day in our national calendar, without any doubt. All right, Brett, how are you, Brett?
Yeah, good, thanks, Sean. Just on Baby Roo and this idea that the national government should promise something and they'll get to the bottom of it and justice and so forth. Look, no, thanks, but I don't want a Prime Minister that focuses on micro causes and individual cases. I want a competent police force that can do its job, whatever the government is, and put baby killers away. I don't need, and I didn't vote for the man, he's not my guy, I'm not defending him, but we don't need Prime Ministers who put on capes.
Well, we do need a friggin' police force that catches kid killers, Brett. You said it, and we don't have one.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And hey, look, they seem to be taking a step, whether it's the right step or not, I don't know, but they're certainly doing more than what the last government was. Whether that'll solve this particular case, which is one of many horrific cases, I don't know, but yeah, I'm not into the idea of the Prime Minister making specific commitments about specific cases.
Okay, and I think there's some logic. There's some logic to that, Brett. I can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and look, with regard to Anzac Day, I actually find myself thinking just of if we need a separate day for remembrance of service and a separate day that we still carry on with the Anzac Day, because I remember my grandfather, who was alive during the tail end of the First World War. He was very young, and through the Second World War he was still quite young, and telling me about their lives back then and the type of people that served. We're not talking about a time when we had a professional serving military. We're talking about people, young men who lied about their age and volunteered.
Citizen armies is what we're talking about. Citizen armies. Yep.
Yeah. It's a very different world to what we had in the latter part of the 20th century, and a very different ethic and reason for serving. And the sacrifice that was made on the altar of Admiral Churchill's grand plan to get up the Dardanelles, and the way that the colonial forces were treated and seen by the English, which we never seem to really visit in any detail, just how
But that is, to me, Brett, I visited, Brett, to me that is, and I just told you a story about my great-grandfather, who would have considered himself English prior to his service on the Western Front, and he returned to New Zealand, and never again would he allow himself to be called an Englishman. He became a New Zealander.
I wouldn't like to speak for those people, but I imagine they got there and realised that the English they felt themselves a part of did not consider them a part of them. That seems to have been loud and clear from the way the leadership was done and the way the lives of the Australian and New Zealand servicemen were treated and thrown away. But then again, how much of that was a class issue back then, which no one seems to remember existed as well. But to me, they were just such greatly different conflicts, and obviously the Second World War being sown in the first one, compared to what came in the latter, through the Cold War era and all of that, and proxy wars and all the rest of it. And I think you're entirely correct, and it's been said time and time again. Anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, just go and watch Chunnock Bear. That'll give you a quick up to speed. But that we need to separate the two things, because they're entirely different to me. The idea of service and then the founding of our nation and what happened.
But you see, the shared experience of service was part of the defining of what the nation was. Brett, that's part of the mystique of the whole thing, mate.
Well,
and
you're
Chunnock
talking about
Bear, and that was the Australians and the New Zealanders.
Yes, but what I'm distinguishing between is professional service and a farmer that picks up a rifle to try and defend the country or the ideals.
Yeah. Okay, Brett, it's worth talking. I think it's worth having a respectful discussion about, Brett, and I'm glad that you're...
I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
No, and you're not, and I get that absolutely. Yeah, I get you. Thank you, mate. Someone says it's pronounced Gallipoli, not Gallipoli. Oh, look, I'll just go with the Kiwi pronunciation if you don't mind, Cobber. 0800 33 2283. Look, I want to read something. Yesterday I talked to some guy, what was his name? Barim Tanik. Tamim, what was it? Barakat. He wasn't a New Zealander, but he was the editor-in-chief of this outfit called The Centrist, Tamim Barakat. And it was good he came on. And they published some stuff that I think is actually quite good journalism. But I also like to know who's saying what and who's paying the piper. You know on the platform who's paying the piper. Increasingly, it's you through your subscriptions and our advertisers through their advertising. And you know that editorially the buck stops with me, right here with yours truly. And that was part of setting up the platform, is that I knew people were sick and tired of not knowing what the agendas of individuals who were setting the editorial policy was. Now, so I talked to Tamim Barakat from The Centrist, which is just a website. And they had a pretty, insubstantial story about some OIA request to Oranga Tamariki, and Tamim admitted he's just a part-time sort of journalist junkie fanboy. I still like the guy, and he fronted up. And a few of you got upset that I asked him some hard questions about who the hell the centrists are and who's paying for them, which seemed completely reasonable in my universe. There's a media release from Tamim Barakat, and we did uncover that the centrist is largely funded by a guy called Jim Grennan. Jim Grennan is a mergers and acquisition, or he's a takeover specialist. He's a billionaire, I think, from Canada. That's fine. And I've met Jim, actually, when I was looking for funding for the platform. But here's the press release they put out, which I think is kind of a little, okay, can we be friends? And of course we can be friends. I never interviewed you with the idea of disrespecting you or being hostile to you. It's just what journalism is to me. So this is the press release they put out yesterday after my interview on the platform. It should have been a routine media interview about Oranga Tamariki admitting in an OIA it was prepared to uplift kids who wanted to transition their gender against parents' wishes. Snappy opening sentence, that, mate, to me. It ended with one news organisation wondering how they could be confident the other is not a front for Vladimir Putin. I kind of knew you weren't, to me, but I used that as hyperbole. The extraordinary interview played out on the platform where breakfast host Sean Plunket had invited centrist managing editor Tamim Barakat on to discuss the Oranga Tamariki revelation. It wasn't a revelation, it was a response to an OIA. But immediately diverted to an interview about who was funding the centrist. Tamim refused to breach my personal privacy. This is hilarious. Without discussing it with me first, says centrist backer Jim Grennan. Okay, Jim, we'll get you on. I've got your number. But had the platform let us know they wanted to go there when they first invited it, it wouldn't have been a problem. Okay. My involvement with the centrist is a matter of public record through our filings with the Companies Office. No, it isn't. It just had Tamim. Tamim as the sole shareholder, Jim. And some articles on both the New Zealand Herald and indeed our own publication last year. What's your own publication, Jim? Sean is a good broadcaster. Thank you, Jim. And we appreciate what the platform is trying to do. No, it's what we're doing, not trying. We are trying to do a similar thing. Yeah. And I think you might be, which is why we should probably talk. However, I accept that because some people may only recently have become aware of us, they might not know our backstory. Tamim, Barakat and I are both originally from Canada, but we have New Zealand family, and we are both long-term permanent residents here. Yep, I appreciate that. Our kids have been educated here, and we are some of the roughly 1 in 3 New Zealanders who were born overseas. Indeed you are. We started as News Essentials, which is now part of Centrist, because we felt there was too much misrepresentation, doublespeak and omission in politics and the more compliant ethic elements of legacy media. I don't disagree with you, Jim. We wanted to cut through the policy wonk, weasel words, buzz phrases and talking points and explain to the voting public what was really being said. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And as I said yesterday, I like most of the stuff you do. In the last 2 years, we've moved to an operational newsroom generating original content. We are ramping up at a time when many media are throwing up paywalls or going under. Yep, I hear you. I hear you. Yet it costs, but we have a business model we are working towards, and we think independent voices in the media are an important public interest, and I agree. So, Sean, in summary, we are not working for the Russians or the Atlas Network or George Soros. I never said George Soros, did I? Although some of us migrated here from Canada, or at least it's not America. New Zealand is now our home. The platform, despite our contretemps, remains a popular listening choice. Well, I'm going to hold out an olive branch to you, Jim, and Tamim. Now I know who you are, though not many other people do. I'm more than happy to reach an agreement with you on getting your stuff on the platform, because we reach a lot more people than you do. And I actually do like the cut of your jib. So there is the invitation. Let's talk soon. Now, but I am going to tell you, my experience after 40 years in journalism is you do have to be open, because trust is the one thing that we can see has been lost in New Zealand. So being open and transparent is incredibly important. I thank you, Jim, for that statement. I thank Tamim for coming on yesterday. Let's keep talking. That is what journalism, the platform, and civic discourse is really all about. There we go. Let's take a break, which is, I think, our last of the morning.
Take the stress out of dairy effluent and wastewater management. Effluex by Microbio Solutions is the new way to clean up while increasing the fertiliser value of your irrigation in one easy step. For more information, go to microbio.co.nz. 100% Kiwi owned.
Hi, I'm Anne DeLefter, licensed real estate salesperson for Ray White. If you are selling a property in Auckland City, my approach is more than generating competition among buyers. It's a special auction process that leaves not a single dollar of your hard-earned cash on the table. In addition, I work hard to present your home with fantastic photography and video that hit the mark with buyers aspiring to live in your suburb. So let's talk today. Call me on 022 108 7577 to get started now.
That's the Easy Build way.
Do you want your town to be the next hotspot weather location? Email your suggestion to hello@theplatform.kiwi. Brought to you by Easy Build. Quality Kiwi homes built fast, designed to last. Call us on 0800 232 792.
That's the Easy Build way.
Sometimes the grass is greener, but with Lawnmaster, the grass is just better. Lawnmaster have been providing hard-working products for hard-working Kiwis for over 75 years. Their range of high-quality and reliable lawnmowers have Kiwi yards covered, and with hedge trimmers, chainsaws, leaf blowers, and more, they've got the gear for any job. Master your garden with Lawnmaster, your 100% New Zealand-owned outdoor power specialist. Go to lawnmaster.co.nz, another Steelfort brand.
Can I just say, from the general tenor of the texts and calls I've been getting, if John Minto and his rent-a-mob mates and the Green Party with their tea towels on their heads want to protest on Anzac Day, I think it's going to be a case of FA and FO. That is certainly the mood I'm getting, though I am not in any way promoting violence or discord in our society. Really interesting, this interest, and an interesting response from you guys. Sean, Jim should thank you. I'm sure a few listeners like me actually headed over to their website after your interview. Keep it up. I bet you they've had what I call the platform or the Plunket bump. And we get it like Takaka will be searched this morning if we search Google checks. Do that, Ben. Sean, you didn't ask hard questions. You shouted over him and let your ego get in the way of a potentially interesting interview. Cheers, Jonathan. Oh, thanks, Jonathan. Why don't you ring in so I can shout over you as well? Sean, my grandfather was at the Somme, more killed there on one day than all of World War II put together. That was for a particular nation. Because certainly more people... No, no, not right, Hugh. I don't think right. Chunuk Bear is called Chunuk Bayeri. If we do Te Reo correct, let's do Turkish too. It's Chunuk Bear to me, sweetheart. Anzac Day is not just of remembrance, but of grieving. In many ways, it's a nationwide funeral for our glorious dead, an opportunity for us all to stop and ponder the sacrifice and acknowledge the suffering of our forebears. Unlike any other funeral, it is sacrosanct. The ghouls who capitalise on our sacred Anzac Day are vile. May wild hogs mate above their graves. Wow. Sean, I'd like to see them try protesting in Gizzy on Anzac Day. I fear it would not end well for them, says Karen. Whoa, these are moving stories, a lot of these. Sean, my dad served World War II in Italy, Egypt and France. My grandfather served in France, World War I, and a great-uncle died in the trenches there. Anzac Day, always very sacred in our family. And we pass on the stories to our children, says Virginia. And I think that these stories are passed on. Sean, great-grandfather killed in action on the Somme. Grandfather killed in action, Africa, World War II. Anyone who protests on Anzac Day should be prosecuted for breach of the peace. John Minto would have been imprisoned years ago. He's a traitor to his nation. R.I.P. Baby Roo. That's from Frosty. Thank you, Frosty. Boy, I don't know. I'm kind of heartened, to be honest. Sean, was it yours or a listener whose uncle came from Tinoroto? My grandfather and Father Harold from there. Oh, Rachel, this is hilarious, Rachel. Tinoroto, Bushy Knoll Station, Edgar Wallace, my great-grandfather. Okay, so Rachel, there'll be a connection there, no doubt about it. He was a pretty big landowner in his day. And went off to serve in World War II, took the whole family back to England with him, in World War I, sorry. Sean, Anzac Parade in Christchurch, a young man had his boombox going. When asked to turn it down, he refused. The sergeant major put a spit-shine boot through each speaker. Very good, Brett. Very good. Peter, welcome. How are you?
Oh, yeah, good, Sean. Yeah, my dad served in the Second World War. He was in the 20th Armoured Regiment, which was originally the 20th Battalion. And his brothers, one was in the 26th Battalion, the other one was in the, he was in the Navy, he was on the Leander, and he was also on the Achilles, but not at the River Plate later on. And my other uncle was, he was training up as a pilot just towards the end of the war in England. He was flying, but they had he didn't get into action because they had too many pilots. And also my grandfather, my Irish grandfather, served in the First World War in a British cavalry regiment. But I'll just give you a couple of stories about my dad and the tanks. A sad one first, and then a funny one afterwards. But when they're over in Italy, a place called Orsonia on the it would be the east coast of Italy, and the engineers had cleared this road, and they put white tape down both sides to show the cleared section. And the troop of tanks that Dad was in, there were 3 tanks, they went up this road. The first tank, it either hit, I think it came from memory, it was either a dead cow or a dead donkey, and it slid off the side of the road there and stopped. Dad's tank pulled up behind it. My father was the gunner in the Sherman tank. And then the third tank pulled up and all stopped. And then Dad said the next minute there was this almighty whoomp. And he turned his periscope around, and the third tank was actually on fire. And the three boys in the turret, they got out, and Dad and the driver of the first tank, they got up on the driver of the third tank's hatch, and were pulling him out, and his khaki top came away, and he fell back into the tank. They weren't sure whether he was dead or alive at the time, and the spear driver, when the explosion had occurred, the turret had actually moved over and just dropped down a bit, and it was over the spear driver's hatch. And the poor bugger, he was still alive, and he was trying to get out, and his hatch kept hitting the barrel of the gun, and he was burnt alive. But the tragic thing, that was horrific, a horrific thing. But the really tragic thing was that Dad and the driver at the front tank, now they're pulling this guy out, the driver of the rear tank out, and not only was he a fellow Kiwi or a fellow human being, but and a friend, being in the same troop and everything. But the sad thing was that the driver in the front tank and the driver in the back tank were brothers.
Oh.
And
Jeez.
So anyhow, they rang up the first two tanks. They called back to each HQ and said, "Shall we turn the tanks around and come out?" And they said, "No, don't risk it." But what they thought that had happened, the engineers had come through and cleared the mines out. But what the Germans had done is they had put another mine further down, made out of wood, but it was on a ratchet system.
Yeah,
So
Peter, we might be delving into detail past. Why not write me a letter? That's a long story. Sure, my grandmother would say she married a man with blonde hair. Not long into their marriage, this grandfather, Bill Smith, also known as Carpoony Smith, went to fight in World War One. Bill returned from his service with white hair, says Vivian Smith. Sean, if our soldiers weren't so brave and Japan had more luck, If our soldiers weren't so brave and Japan had more luck, I'd be texting from a life that never occurred to a life which had never occurred to listen to Sam, I don't get it, give me a ring. Sean, okay. Okay, we were probably a little post-World War II. Kudos to you for the olive branch to the centrist. You are still a streperous bastard, but well done, says Greg. Thank you, Greg. Sean, in regards to the centrists, nothing wrong with what you did yesterday about asking who they were and backed by. I'm surprised others think otherwise. Cheers, Chris. Sean, Anzac Day, we will remember them. Need to distinguish between English and English command. Yes, good point. Thank you, Cameron. Englishmen died by the score alongside Kiwis and Aussies by the score. Visit Lancashire. Landing Day 1, 8,000 dead, 31,000 Englishmen buried alongside our Anzacs. Lest we forget. Thank you, Cameron. That is a good issue to point out. Sean, grandfather had his 18th birthday in France and spent 2 years in the trenches of France and Belgium. Especially remember him on Anzac Day, Jimmy. Yeah, those guys did long legs. Uncle Neil signed up first day of the war, off to Egypt, then to Gallipoli, then to the Western Front. Absolute mess when he returned. He married a nurse, a British nurse, and brought her back to Collingwood. Some suggestion she beat him to death with a hammer. Eventually, because they were both alcoholics. He couldn't have kids. He had VDG. I got his military records. VDG, venereal disease gonorrhea. I understood that stood for. So he got a lot of clap. Sean, isn't Poo Poo Springs near Takaka? Great spot, says Brett. Yes, that is our easy build weather location. Taka, a lot of marijuana in Taka. Once played a game of rugby in Wellington, in Takaka for the Nelson College First 15, called off early, and we had to flee town because we were beating a bunch of moronic wood choppers, and we were beating them so much that a fight broke out. And I always remember our rugby coach, this was about 1981, 82, I just get into the van, lads, and we fled Takaka. And I had a girlfriend in Takaka at the time who was a bar person at the Postboy Tavern, and I wasn't really welcome back in Takaka because I might have been involved in the fight, and there were a few young bloods in Takaka who didn't like boys from Nelson College First 15, and that was kind of the end of the relationship, Louise, wasn't it? I couldn't go back to Takaka for quite some time, so I've literally been run out of Takaka after a rugby game, and I had to stop seeing Louise, and oh God, my life could have been different. Actually, her dad was a dairy farmer, Louise's dad, in Takaka, and look, had it not been for the fight at the Takaka rugby grounds, I could have had a very different life. Sean, good show today. Good job on the most engaged media in New Zealand. Thank you. Sean, my eldest son was 23 and in the RNZF when he went with the contingent who went to the first Gulf War, Desert Storm in 1991. Our New Zealand veterans include many from recent action these days. Yes, they do, Brian, and thank you for reminding us. Haiku for Anzac Days. In fields they lay still, brave hearts stilled, their story told, Anzac heroes. Nice, mate. Nice. Sean, I wouldn't know until I'm about 80 what happened to my grandfather. His ship, the Augusta, was bombed in the North Sea. The record's sealed, says Sharon. Wow. We've only got 3 minutes left. I can take one more call if you want to, but we've covered some ground today. Thank you. I'm going to say thank you again to the Post newspaper and Francis Chin for highlighting on your front page the 6-month anniversary of the heinous crime of the murder by beating of baby Roo. A crime 6 months on, almost, 6 months on, that no one has been held accountable for. I live in a city where baby killers walk the streets. That worries me. It worries me far more than 3 strikes legislation introduced by the government. If police don't have the tools to do the job, we must give them to them. And also, Anzac Day. Not a day for protest. And if you're one of those rent-a-mob Palestine flag draping idiots who turns out every weekend, I think we've delivered a clear message to you here on the platform today, and all our listeners and our texters have, and that is not this Thursday, snowflakes. Please recognise the sacrosanct nature of Anzac Day and the importance to so many people for so many different reasons of this day. I again recommend that you download the app, get onto the website and read the lovely little piece from Scott Lee on the Late Arrivals Club about his dad, Flying Officer Lee, in World War II. And thank you. And I can continue tomorrow. I suspect it's going to be fertile ground, as it were. I'm happy to talk more about Anzac memories of service tomorrow in the run-up to Anzac Day on Thursday. So, look, I think a really good show today. And, look, I reach out to be honest, to Tamim Barakat and Jim Grennan from The Centrist. If you really want to reach an audience, flick some of your stuff our way. Happy to republish it with a credit to you. More than happy to do that. I feel like I need a good cup of tea after the show today, actually, Ben. We have covered a lot of ground, and I think a lot of serious and in some ways sombre ground. Wouldn't it be lovely if tomorrow morning I could report an arrest and an admission of guilt in the death of baby Ruthless Empire? That would be a New Zealand I would want to live in. That would be a New Zealand I would lay down my life for. If we could have justice and we could treat our most innocent and protect our most innocent, rather than putting up with the rubbish that has gone on for too long in this country. Sean, playing any sport against Golden Bay or Tākeka is difficult as they have 6 toes on each foot. Gives them good balance. Oh, Tony, don't start a war with Tākeka. Sean, in Aussie, they know how to respect and remember. Every day at 6 p.m, everyone in the pub stops for the last post. I wish we did it here. Maybe we should. Michael along after the news at 10. Have a great day, everyone. It's news time.
News on the platform.
In this update, considered criticism of the incoming 3 strikes legislation from a criminal defence lawyer. The government is re-establishing the laws which will see mandatory prison sentences for violent and sexual criminals committing a third offence. Lawyer John Munro says a very large proportion of the legal fraternity do not agree with it, despite some public opinion.
I think the legal fraternity are probably best placed to comment on it because they see it firsthand. We really need to pause and look at individual cases and make sure that they meet the ends of justice.
However, Munro says giving judges more discretion will help. Hopes pay disputes between Health New Zealand and workers can be settled before planned strike action. Resident doctors will strike for 25 hours on May 7 after hundreds of registrars and GPs are disgruntled over what they've been offered. The Resident Doctors Association's Deborah Powell says strikes are a last resort.
There's always the possibility of settling. We are going to mediation next week, so we live in hope.
Meanwhile, a former Health New Zealand chairman says the agency needs better management. But Rob Campbell says Health New Zealand needs to do better to prevent the strikes.
It's not good management to have these issues being thrashed out now in public with threats of strike, all that sort of thing. That won't help a solution to these issues at all.
Employers have more choice with competition for work heating up. Recruitment companies are warning of thousands joining the unemployment queue and more people signing up for job seeker benefits. The latest Seek data shows job ads falling by 0.4% in March. Talent ID Recruitment's Holly Oppers says there's been a change of tide. She says a lot more skilled candidates are coming through, meaning there's movement in the market, which she says isn't a bad thing. Almost 7,000 people have submitted to Christchurch City Council's long-term plan. There's broad support for the sale of surplus council land and changes to visitor accommodation rates. That's news.
Sport on the platform.
In sport, Red Bull team principal Christian Horner has rejected suggestions Max Verstappen has made Formula One boring. The triple world champion's Chinese Grand Prix triumph has seen him open up a 25-point buffer at the top of the championship standings over teammate Sergio Perez. Verstappen has won 4 of the 5 races so far this year. It's led rival McLaren driver Lando Norris to claim the only exciting races in Formula One are when Verstappen isn't racing. Horner says Verstappen's dominance needs to be appreciated and that this golden run won't last forever. Tennis star Novak Djokovic and Spanish footballer Aitana Bonmati have been saluted as World Sportsman and Sportswoman of the Year, respectively, at the glitzy Laureus Awards in Madrid. It's the 5th time Djokovic has received the gong. In 2023, he matched Margaret Court's all-time record of 24 Grand Slam title wins. Bonmati steered Spain to World Cup glory.